Hello. My name is Justin. Hello, hi. I'm the host of this production. It is called Breaking Change. We are celebrating our 35th major version release today. I was meant to record yesterday, so today is Easter Sunday, if you still keep track of that sort of thing. I was gonna record yesterday on Saturday, and I was thinking, used to be I was raised in a Christian household and used to believe in that stuff, and I don't anymore. But I was racking my brain because we weren't Catholic, so the particular the Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday, it was Saturday, and then there's Easter Sunday, and I was like, what's the one that they do for Saturday? And rather than look it up, when you're blessed with infinite information at your fingertips, I think sometimes it's actually it's quaint to just let the mystery be, so to speak. So I was like, what would the Saturday be? And I was chatting with Becky, and I was thinking, let's call it Sexy Saturday, because Jesus dies on Thursday night. He's not back again till Sunday. That means no one's minding the store. The mice will play. That means you can do anything you want. It's like you could do the purge, you could do big orgies, you can do whatever you like. God can't see because he's not around. So I don't see why, and here we are. It's just like the Catholics aren't eating fish, or are only eating fish and not other meat and stuff. It's like you should take advantage, right? Like this is your one day a year, well, really, you got 72 hours, right? It really is kind of like the purge, And then it comes back Sunday, and we're like, hey, hope you still got some extra forgiveness, right? Anyway, happy Easter Sunday for those who celebrate. Uh, Kicking off strong here. Actually, it's a jam-packed episode, so we're gonna keep it light. Try to keep the tempo up. Is a phrase that I like to use that irritates people, because I love nothing more than just rattling on to the next thing without very much thought about the last thing, because otherwise the regret just builds up, and I can find it paralyzing. I'm celebrating. Well, yesterday I was, and I was going to tell you this, but now it's a day old. But really, this is my own 7-day long holiday. I celebrate it every 6 months. It's called New T-Shirt Day. But because I have 7 t-shirts in rotation and I change them every 6 months, even though it's the same, I buy 12 or buy 14 at a time annually, and every annual purchase of t-shirts, I think, I have a review of the brands and the pricing, and I switched from Next Level 6010s, which is a tri-blend, to Bella plus Canva. Whenever there's a plus in a goddamn designer name, I don't know how to pronounce it. Bella Canva, whatever the fuck. But they also sell a tri-blend shirt. This is it. It's good. So I got 14 of those. I paid $75 for all 14. And every 6 months, I throw away or donate the 7 that I've been using on a 7-day cycle. And put on new shirts. And the thing is, new shirts feel nice. They still got whatever waxy formaldehyde on the cloth that makes it feel smooth. It hasn't worn down yet. So yeah, it feels good to be me here celebrating the aftermath of Sexy Saturday. Other life shit. What's going on? Oh, I thought of you. Because the only time I really listen to podcasts reliably is on my run. I go for a run every day. I run a 5K. I used to run a 5K every day. Now I run a 5K every other day. And then on the off days, I lift weights. And then I run a 3K. So I get a shorter run in because it takes me fucking forever to lift weights because I goddamn hate it. I just sit there and I stare at it. I'm like, can I think of anything else to do? And so that's a good reason I keep the house so clean. Is between sets, I'm like, well, I don't want to do the next set, so I guess I'll go tidy something up. So anyway, I was going for my run at some point last week, and I didn't have my watch on. I went to go for a run. I got a 5% battery, or the battery was straight up just dead. And because I had a hard stop, I had another meeting coming up in an hour and a half or whatever, or an hour. I was like, I guess I got to just run without a watch. And I realized it had been damn near a decade since I'd run. outdoors without a phone or a watch. I mean, it's in my neighborhood. It's not like a safety thing. It's like this means it's just going to be me and the voices now. Like, that's what that means. Like, my brain suddenly rushes, like, do I have an old iPod Nano? Do I have a solution to this problem that I can solve in 10 minutes? And I really didn't, because my shorts, my current like running loadout, it's impractical to bring a phone with me. It'll just bop around and then fall out. So I raw dogged a run, a whole 5K, and I thought like maybe this will bring me closer to nature, myself. Maybe I'll connect somewhere. Maybe I'll have some deep thoughts. Maybe I'll have I'll solve a problem, that I've been thinking about. But instead, it was just torturous. It was so bad. It made me realize that, like, jogging as a hobby activity took off in the US really in the 80s. It existed in the 70s, right? But it was really like an 80s phenomenon. You know what else was an 80s phenomenon? The Walkman, where you could like put in headphones and listen to anything else but your thoughts. And books on tape takes off. And, a lot of runners run with music on, which is fine. Music's a fine choice, but I much prefer humans talking at me to drown out the inner monologue. And so not having that sucked. No wonder humans didn't run for fun before the 80s. So if you've ever been thinking like maybe I should stop listening to podcasts while I'm doing dishes or whatever, keep listening. I'm going to try to give you as much content here as I can today. What else went on? I had a celebrity encounter. So Becky and I were members at the Orlando Four Seasons. It's right across the street. I don't think I've shared that before, but they have a golf club. It's a great club. Great people all around. Staff are amazing. Made a lot of friends who are the members there. I'm still in the process of learn how to golf after working through all my back issues, which I have overshared plenty about. But anyway, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Four Seasons baby TikTok meme or whatever. Like if you're coming to Disney World and you're too hot to trot, it's the best hotel in the area to accomplish that purpose. And so every now and then I'll see celebrities, NBA sports teams, famous individuals, right? Like total shitheels that happen to be famous or related to famous people who I will not necessarily usually talk about or talk to. But very often, like if somebody who I have like a neutral to positive affect for, I might say, hey, I appreciate your work. I got to meet like Lennox Lewis once. Manager pulled me away from dinner and was like, hey, do you want to meet Lennox Lewis? I was like, I guess. I was in the middle of a conversation, but sure, I guess. And that was real weird. Anyway, I was getting drinks with my friend Jerry and my brother, and across from me, and like sometimes in like a lounge setting, two chairs will be far-ish apart, but like directly opposed at like a perfect angle. And so Anderson Cooper just stared at me with dead eyes for the better part of 60 minutes. Not the CBS program that he's also on, but just the duration of time. And he and his party, Andy Cohen was there. I had to be told who Andy Cohen was because I don't have Bravo. Is that what he does? Something about the housewives or something? Anyway, they were at a table and they were all being crawled over by little monster children. And it looked like those children had a lot more energy left at the end of the day, and the parents had very little. The Disney parks take it out of you, even the best of us. But two thoughts. One, Anderson Cooper is wears the glasses when he's off. He wore the exact same black thick rim glasses. I always thought it was kind of a stage prop. I always expected him to be like a circular spectacle man, or maybe have had LASIK by now. But no, he wears the glasses, and that was interesting. So he stays on brand. That says something. The other thing, other than him just staring at me with dead eyes, was like I realized that, like, other than being in a lot of airports for the last 14 years, I don't think I've ever developed an opinion of him. I think that the takeaway that I had was he is just so... Maybe it's like you're trying to ape, like, just like the Walter Cronkite, just the newsreader kind of persona, and he's trying to stay right in there. Or maybe he's just kind of boring and milquetoast. I don't know. I'm not like an avid CNN watcher, but I realized I've seen a lot of you for a long period of my life, and I have absolutely nothing that I would ever be able to say to you in passing that would be honest or interesting. And I was like, within 30 seconds, I was bored of the fact that Anderson Cooper was kind of staring through me in a tired stupor. So God bless, happy Easter, Anderson. I know he's probably a listener of the show and he probably feels awkward now. I also weirdly, coincidentally, in a case of like the algorithm knowing exactly what I needed to hear, I was watching YouTube at night, just the night after, 2 nights after. And I was watching the history of the Vanderbilt family and how they all kind of like second generation does okay, third generation blows all the money. You know the story. The general story. I mean, that's just always what happens with people who make money is the second generation came up with the no money into getting some money and they figure out how to preserve or grow the money, and the third generation grew up with the silver spoon in their mouth and finds a way to squander it because they're not right in the head anymore. And such is the story of the Vanderbilt family. But I want to say Gloria Vanderbilt. I didn't know any of this stuff. I'm not from New England. Gloria Vanderbilt had Anderson as her child, her son, and he just didn't take the name. He's a self-made man in a sense, in that he uses a different name, and people don't know that he is an heir to Commodore Vanderbilt, the Vanderbilt guy, as in Vanderbilt University and all that stuff. So I respect that. If I'd known that, then I would have had something to say at a cocktail party, But here I am. So that's weird. It's just like life here is. I guess the takeaway is life here is really fucking weird, and you can either embrace it, or you can embrace it. Is the thing that you can do. I don't know what else I would do with this. I'm having a great time. One thing that's helping me have a great time, I've been very productive this week because I made a decision. It was a hard decision. It was a decision similar to the ones that people make when they're like, you know what, maybe I need to quit drinking, or maybe I got to stop smoking, or maybe I got to start telling my children I love them even though I feel nothing in my heart. And it was the decision to sign out of iMessage on each of my Mac computers, my Macintosh computers, on which I do work and I develop software and I get stuff done. Because just like for me with Twitter or social media in general, having it right there, one command tab away while I'm working on my computer, is an invitation to distract myself. Similar to when I'm not wanting to do the next set or whatever when I'm working out. It's so easy for me to derail myself, get off task and just like blow like 20 minutes on nonsense. And one thing that I would frequently do, so if you're somebody who iMessages with me often and you're wondering how is Justin typing so much so fast, it's because I'm at my computer and I'm trying not to work. So I would like have an interesting thought or see an interesting bug and grab a screenshot and then like immediately paste it into an iMessage. And then, I also have this terrible habit of like when you're chatting with somebody, you send the text message or you send the chat message and then you wait for the reply, or you watch the little ellipses and you just watch the ellipses and you're like, well, I should keep the window open. I should stay staring at this because they're going to write something. And then the ellipses disappear after 45 seconds or a minute. And you're like, all right, well, that was a waste of time. So you send a follow-up. You there? Yeah, the thirst is real. Otherwise, what's going on? I don't know. Not a lot of life news. I got some follow-up. Follow-up is stuff that we've talked about before, shit that I've been working on. And whenever I got follow-up, I gotta hit the follow-up button now. That stinger always reminds me of like The Sims. It feels like a Maxis computer game in the late 90s. Remember Simcopter? Simcopter was a great game. I had a lot of fun with Simcopter. I had like a cheap Thrustmaster, which I've always thought was a hilarious name, joystick, which is a hilarious name for that product in particular. And it was a game where you were a helicopter pilot and you would run missions in a real Sim City. You could actually import your Sim City, which is like a top down, like you'd only ever see like kind of the map of it, and you could fly through your own cities and you could do missions. You could put out fires and save people from stranded on buildings and stuff. And there was a gay member of the team who wanted to have some representation of, like, I guess what the people in the cities were the proto The Sims. It was the first time they ever thought about, like, oh yeah, who would live in one of these Sim cities. And so they had these little people, and apparently he got slapped on the hand, and Maxis was like, hey, no gay stuff. And so there's probably a YouTube video about this somewhere, but he put in, apparently, and I remember this as a child. I remember being like so confused by this. He snuck in right before they went to Goldmaster and pressed the CD-ROMs and put out the discs into stores, which is a thing that you used to have to do to get software. Which I bought that game from Software Etc. in a Barnes and Noble building. Or maybe even a Borders. Borders is a old Michigan bookstore that is long gone. He put like naked dancing men and fireworks, and every certain number of days it would just be like a gay soap party all over the city. Wherever you were, you would just get swarmed by a bunch of gay dancing men. And I remember being like, what is happening? What is the gameplay relevance of this? Like, is this a mission? I feel weird feelings. Anyway, that stinger now is going to be the transition into the guy got fired, by the way. Yeah, because like you can't easily patch a game. That was before we were patching games at all, really. And if a game did release a patch, you had to know about it, find it, download it, install it yourself manually. Yeah, so that guy got super fired because that was a pretty subversive thing to do. But something tells me he felt okay about it. So follow up. So Merry Tariffmas. It's I guess a dual holiday now, right? The tariffs are a thing. Some prices have gone up for sure. Anchor started raising prices. Nintendo delayed the pre-orders for the Switch, and then they undelayed them, and they announced, hey, the Switch pre-orders are coming out. The console's still going to be basically $450, but our accessory prices are going to go up because separately. Unlike smartphones and computers, the Trump administration made it clear that video game consoles are not exempt from the tariffs. So I'm feeling actually really good about all the purchases that we made. I've got this 32 terabyte NAS plugged into Thunderbolt here. It's been just fantastic. Trying to think. I had this written down somewhere. Huh. Well, anyway, I'm using Time Machine with it. Yeah. So that's I haven't used Time Machine in years, like years and years. I kept trying to use Time Machine. That is the Mac OS backup system. It technically works. Supposedly, it's documented to work over a network to a network drive, but the implementation for how it works when it's trying to back up to a drive over a network. The implementation was always different, and it never really transitioned to the APFS file system era correctly. And so if you do it, it will just eventually fail. It will eventually say, hey, this is corrupt, or hey, I got to start over. Or it might just, if it's a large backup, it might just never finish, not even the first backup, which was the case with me trying to back up to my Synology and following God knows how many instructions and tutorials to try to back up our two computers to the Synology via Time Machine. So I just gave up, and I got Backblaze, and I just kind of hoped for the best. Well, now that I got this 32 terabyte drive that I will struggle to fill up for a while, I figured that I would create a second APFS volume on it. I would give it a 12 terabyte maximum, and I would back up this Mac Studio. And so I started backing it up, and I was like, well, this Mac Studio does have 8 terabytes of garbage on it already, or 7 of it, or whatever. It's mostly full from things like this 4K video. And I walked away from the computer, and I had dinner, and I walked back, and not only was it already done backing up all 8 terabytes, but it had done 3 more incremental backups after that, which was amazing. I was like, what the hell? This is I was so used to this being a multi-day process, even with a good network connection, like a 10 gig or 1 gig LAN Ethernet connection, it would still take weeks because it just didn't work. So hey, don't sleep on locally attached storage to your computer if you can afford it, and if you're using certainly like a Mac Studio, a desktop computer, go for it. So that's great. We got a skimmer machine for the like a robot. It's kind of like a Roomba for your pool. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's literally it just solar powered and it just kind of trots around. It looks like a little boat. Goes around the pool and it skims all of the detritus, all of the little like in Florida they call them no-see-ums, like just like very tiny gnats and small bugs. And so now the surface of the pool is crystal clear. I've been meaning to get something like that. It's a few $100. I was putting it off. I got it anyway, and now I'm really happy I did. It's working great. Got a couple other knickknacks too. What else comes to mind? Got Becky a better camera, better like key lights for her recordings. I got several different HDMI over Ethernet solutions because I want to try it. I've had a lot of success with HDMI base T, where I can have a gaming PC right down there. It's over there. I'm pointing, if you can't see. It's in the corner of the room where I record, but like it's got a NVIDIA 3090 in it, which is a super hot, super loud GPU card. And playing a game actually in the same room as that with anything other than an S-tier cooling solution is not fun because the room gets really hot and really loud. But with HDMI base T, I just plug the computer's, an Ethernet jack into an HDMI breakout box, plug that into the wall, and then on the other side, I plug an Ethernet jack into another HDMI breakout box, and I plug that HDMI into my projector over in the next room, and I can play computer games on my big 120-inch screen, reclined. I'm a comfy couch gamer. I don't. If you're gonna lean forward, working all day at an office desk, doing that for your fun too seems like a recipe for back pain. So that I've had a lot of success with that, and now I'm trying to figure out how do I extend that to our other room that has a nice big OLED TV, because sometimes maybe theater's occupied or we got house guests and I don't want to be like all up in their business. So I got 3 or 4 of those that I have to try because I only intend to keep one of them. But tariffs being what they are, it's just like, all right, buy now. So yeah, I still got to let the dust settle, but happy with how the tariff miss went. Also, as we've discussed previously, we bought a Tesla Model Y. We bought it used with about 1,000 miles on it. I do not regret that at all because you could barely tell that it had been used. And then once my detailer went and touched up the paint and detailed it, I honestly couldn't tell you that it wasn't brand new. So Tesla's worked great, in particular because we only use it for full self-driving, and that seems to be working better and better all the time. Even the couple of software updates that it's gotten since we bought it in February have been marked improvements. It's not perfect, and we still have to intervene every now and then, but I had a hilarious one that was definitely not backed by a rich amount of training data. Over at the aforementioned Four Seasons and like the area between my house and that hotel is a big sanctuary, and that sanctuary has a lot of interesting wildlife. And one of the things that you'll see very often out on the golf course are turkeys, wild turkeys, just toms, just big old fucking turkeys. And they're all over the place. And typically they don't go into the roads. But I was driving past, the road near our house, and there was a family. A family? I don't know what a gobble of turkeys, like whatever the group name for turkeys is, was crossing the street. And I thought it was hilarious. I was like, oh, look at these. And they're big targets, right? I hit one with a golf ball once, and I felt terrible. It was like my first good shot in a year. And of course, I fucking just clock a turkey right in the side. And then fell over. And I was like, if I fucking killed it, the turkey survived. But I was like, you know what? Like, turkeys are big enough that if you murder one, you feel bad, right? There's a scale somewhere of how big does the animal need to be before you feel bad that you killed it. Like spiders, way below that scale. Geckos, now we're talking, right? Kill a gecko, you kill a frog. That seems kind of fucked up. Turkey, and that's like, that's manslaughter. So, especially if it's the boy turkeys are pretty hefty. So I just figured that the car would slow down. It looks like a little pedestrian. It's like, well, it's like a really short child with a turkey suit would pass for a turkey, right? Like it would probably stop. And this family of turkeys, just they're crossing the road, and the car is accelerating. It's like it goes, it's a green light. It's in the distance. It's probably 300 meters away, and the car is revving. It's accelerating into. It's very clearly going to just smash into one, if not two turkeys. And I was paying attention, of course. So I just, I try to give it a chance to start to break because sometimes like its regenerative braking is really aggressive, and so it'll keep going at a good clip, and then it'll break rather suddenly to try to like maximize the amount of regenerative braking energy that's restored to the car. And this wasn't that. This was turkey murder, and it was Elon has a thing against turkeys, I guess, and uh, he was trying to clear the land so that his 14 children could have more room to roam. And I was like, no, not today, Satan. I hit the brakes, and I was able to avoid just absolute turkey mayhem. And so I was glad for that, but it did make me think if, like, they claim every time something like that happens, they claim that unsupervised, meaning you can run the full self-driving and not being paying attention to the road, right? I wonder who the liability is going to go to in the case where it just runs into people or turkeys or turkey-shaped people, which frankly, in America, you can't really put it past them. Uh, ugh. Yeah. So anyway, narrowly averted. So that's my Tesla tip of the week is if you see any turkeys, be on alert. Um, I also started using agents, a little bit more. AI agents have been a hot thing for long enough. I gave it a 6 month cooldown. I think it was just like 2 weeks ago. I said I was going to use AI tools less or try to follow the news a little bit less. But GitHub Copilot, which I've had yesterday, I mistakenly said it was November 2023, and I just realized it was actually November 2022. I've been using it pretty much continuously, but only in the spicy autocomplete mode, where it like kind of tries to give me a tab completion for what it thinks I want to say. And then that's usually wrong. It's just it hasn't been very reliable for me. And so I don't think I've turned it off. Maybe I've turned it off, but I just don't. And I don't like to have the chat window up because it's like, yeah, I could have a conversation with you, but if you're not going to actually edit the code for me, what are you really doing here? I'd rather just use the GPT app and have it, it's because it's a more pleasant chat interface and it can keep more context. So I really haven't gotten much out of Copilot, but they just finally released agent mode. And so now you can toggle inside of the Copilot chat, like basically do my homework for me mode is all agent means. And you can give it a prompt and it'll go through, it'll plan out steps, it'll do the steps, it'll create files, it can run tests, it can perform web searches, and it'll do the research until things work or until it thinks things will work, and it'll give you commands to run and so forth. So that's pretty rad. I was impressed by that. I wrote a little post, and then yesterday, instead of recording this program for you, which was my intent, I did a 90-minute long screencast where I actually had the agent build a scraper of Japanese real estate listing sites. And it was, a lot of that time is me talking. You'd be shocked to learn that a lot of the time was just me kind of vamping and explaining what I was trying to do and writing in prompts and just showing you like my thought process through the thing. But there's like a juicy 30 minutes in the middle where like this thing really cooks. And I was genuinely impressed because I had it do Python, which I don't know how to write. I was having it do a foreign language that, I can read it, but like most people can't. But like all of my prompts basically were in English, and it was totally fine because of course it was, because LLMs are multilingual. And yeah, it was able to scrape the sites, convert that to JSON as an intermediary format. It created a database schema in Postgres, and then it saved all of those as single row records to a Postgres table, which is what I wanted. And so now I can spin up multiple of these agents, perform a lot of searches around the country. And because I've got it scoped from like, outside in geographically, like I can search all of the listings by prefecture or more specifically by city or ward or whatever. And that way I can start gathering listings. And that's pretty, I think that's pretty cool. I don't need this code forever. I'm looking into the Japanese real estate market because I'm interested in buying a condo there soon. But if and once you do that, I don't need don't need all these listings anymore. I'm just trying to figure out like how do I size up the market and figure out which market to be in, which neighborhoods to look at, what's the price differential, what's this availability of new versus used condominiums look like, and so forth. And doing that in English is annoying, right? If you've ever tried to buy something on Zillow, or research on Zillow or any sort of real estate site, it's like a lot of ads. These things are these pages don't want to be scraped. They want to, draw you in and use their agents. And so you end up in 500 tabs, and you get rate limited just from browsing on a web browser. And you try to like manually enter all that into a spreadsheet, and you keep track. And it's impossible to really get a lay of the land. There's a certain amount of arbitrariness, because like you only really have the energy to like look at 50 tabs of listings a day before it's sort of like you've taste tested 10 wines, and you can't, your nose and mouth can't actually discriminate more wines. It all bleeds together, and you get things confused. And so having this intermediary go and scrape them for me, just get the data, then I can query the data based on real meaningful questions that I have. So anyway, that's what the thing I had to build. It did a remarkably good job. It did hit a brick wall where I just got an error, and then I kept getting that error even after rebooting the thing. And I posted at the very end of the screencast, I posted a GitHub issue. That issue was closed within like 3 or 4 hours and fixed. So, and because the feedback mechanism inside of Copilot will open a GitHub issue on that VS Code repo, there were like 8 dupes. So clearly people are using this, and clearly they're on top of the bugs. Which is something you cannot say about Cursor. Like, you look at the Cursor subreddit, and it's a lot of people complaining, and a lot of developers apologizing, and a lot of developers signaling that they are swamped. And that's what happens. That's what happens when you fork somebody else's IDE and you don't understand how it works. It's like adopting so much legacy code. But I guess if you're a company that's like generating a bunch of legacy code, and that's your whole value proposition, you might not really understand the liability there. And I would hazard a guess that Windsurf and Cursor do not. So hopefully Windsurf gets purchased by OpenAI before they collapse like a black hole onto themselves. So yeah, I'll put the links up to my content in the show notes. And that's about all she wrote. I guess it's time for the pun. Almost yanked my iPad right out of its little stand here. So part of taking iMessage off of my Mac means that now when I read Aaron's bi-weekly breaking change pun, I have to go and get my iPad out. So I'm going to hover over his... Here, you can actually... If you're watching at home, you can see me rubbing the invisible ink to see it. Let's read his pun together. It took me a while to figure out how to get my boat to float, but then I let it sink in. It took me a while to figure out how to get my boat to float, but then I let it sink in. It took me a while. And is there something to this that I'm not getting? I mean, there's the... Is this a reference to that floats my boat, as in the expression, like that something is, that you like something? Like, oh, that really floats my boat, right? Like, which is an expression I have not really heard in a long fucking time, and I'm not even sure I'm getting it right now. It took me a while to figure out how to float my boat, but then I let it sink in. And just sort of the flip, right? Of like, to make something float, you have to let it sink. This might just be, he sent this Friday at 5:55 a.m., but he's in Japan right now. So Ruby Kaigi just ended. I'm going to copy paste this while I can. So Ruby Kaigi just ended. It took me a while to float my boat, but then I let it sink in. This is a tough one, because I'm on the spot, and I really feel like I might just need to create a new category in this ranking list called Justin didn't really get this one. And at the next pun sort at Christmas this year, when Aaron and I go and re-rank all these puns, he's going to just need to explain it to me, I think. And if he can't defend this one, he's out. I'm going to find a new pun guy. Took me a while to float my boat. Took me a while to figure out how to get my boat to float, but then I let it sink in. Okay. Get my boat to float. So you didn't say float my boat. Yeah, okay, so I think it's just that float and sink are antonyms. And to make it float, you have to let it sink. And the thing you're sinking is the concept, figuring out. The thing you're floating is the boat, the physical thing. So you can sort of see that there's this duality in the sentence diagram there that is pleasant. I get that. So I think that there's a certain person, like a thinking man, right, who reads literature, not books, who would see that and see the structure of it and find it desirable. But me as like a more editorially minded person, I'm like, what are you saying here, bud? What are you trying to communicate? Took me a while to figure out how to get my boat to float, but then I let it sink in. I don't think I've ever said one of these puns more than this. This is the sort of pun where if we're ranking it based on how much time it wastes, right, cumulatively, which is the best measure we have for a pun so far, this might be a good one just because it's going to rattle around in my head for years, and every time the concept of buoyancy occurs, it's going to come to mind, and I'm going to think, was there something I was missing there? Please write in, podcast@searles.co, and tell me what you think about this one, and tell me how I'm wrong and don't understand this. Look, I know people don't like it when I just immediately start by saying this is the worst pun, or this is like lower on the list. Every week I hear from somebody who says like, this pun was way better than you gave it credit for. Don't tell Aaron that, because he'll, if he starts feeling good about himself, the puns just get worse. So right now, just kind of like level set where we're at. The current number 4 from last time. My biggest issue with callbacks is that I wish they would text first. Succinct. It grew on me over the course of me fussing about where to rank it. The current number 5. I'm thinking of starting a YouTube channel for physicists and calling it Mass Media. Is this better than that? Figure out how to get my boat to float, but then I let it sink in. I think like there is a technical mastery here that I really respect, if that's all it is. My fear is, and I'm really worried right now, like I'm really worried that I'm not getting the joke, that there's some other joke here. And I'm going to learn about it, and I'm going to feel stupid. But the thing is, I'm a lot of times, like when we have worries, right? We're worried about some future outcome, and then we're worried we're going to feel a certain way in the future if some other bad thing happens. Like in this case, Aaron says that I didn't get the joke, and then I'm going to feel dumb. And so what do I feel right now? I feel dumb. So I feel dumb preemptively out of fear that in the future I will feel dumb if it turns out that I don't get this joke. So I'm already paying the penalty of not getting the joke, which, if we measure a pun's success on the amount of suffering that it causes, is a very remarkably successful pun. And so in terms of just like the intensity of feelings that I am having right now as a result of this pun, I think this is better than the Mass Media one. But I would definitely still say that the callbacks in the text first one is more clever. So here we go. Slot it right in there. The new number 5 for the year, version 35. It took me a while to figure out how to get my boat to float, but then I let it sink in. So there we go. That's good job, team. Yeah, we couldn't have done it without you. So let's get to the news. Let's start off with some video game news. So Switch 2 got announced. Aforementioned tariffs are not exempted. Price stays the same mostly. Sure. I watched the announcement video. I don't know what I was looking for, probably because I'm more interested in the hardware specs and stuff than I am in Mario Kart. I wasn't looking closely at the game footage to try to understand, resolution, pixel peep, what's the actual native resolution, what are they upscaling it to, and all this sort of stuff. Or even really, and it's hard when you're watching the trailer to a video game to remember exactly what the last video game looked like, because we kind of all have nostalgia goggles and we kind of, think of the graphics for every single game in terms that are relativistic to their contemporary games of the time and what they looked like. But there's if you're not familiar with them, if you're not a hardcore gamer, you might not know of the YouTube channel and podcast Digital Foundry. And they started off as like part of the Eurogamer magazine network, broke off, did their own thing, wildly successful, just doing deep dive technical analyses into GPUs, CPUs, but mostly like how those things are rendered into games and game engines. And so they're like really the foremost experts in journalism in terms of like what's going on here technically. And so their analysis video of the Mario Kart game, after getting some extended hands-on and looking at the Team Treehouse like extended stream of the game, really shows, just how big of a leap this new 24-player online Mario Kart open world game is over Mario Kart 8, which is granted like 12 years old at this point, maybe older. So I'll share that link in there if you're interested to kind of like a better understanding of how much better the Switch 2 is than the original Switch from a hardware perspective, because it can simultaneously be very impressive because it's better than a Wii U, which is 2 console generations ago, and that's what that Mario Kart game was made for initially. And also very disappointing because this thing, it's got a 20 watt hour battery in it, which is not very big relative to like what you see in a Steam Deck or something. And that means that its overall, energy consumption, if it's rated to have a minimum of a 2-hour battery life, means that at most it's going to draw 10 watts per hour, or 10 watts at a time at any instant read. What that means is like, a Steam Deck is going to easily pull like 15 just from the CPU. I don't remember the overall thermals and stuff, but like it's going to be way less. Without that much electricity, you could have the best chip in the world and you'd still be pretty underperforming. And so it'll run a little faster when it's docked, but like this thing is not going to be a screamer, of course. And no one expects that because it's a Nintendo thing. But there's a little child inside of me that's like, what if Nintendo actually had the best graphics? Wouldn't that be great? And it's like I'm fighting the console wars from like 1996, in my head. Because I was like 11 or 12 or whatever the fuck. And so I get it. Like, that part of me will never be sated because the other kid at lunch in the cafeteria, who was the Sony fan, was a real piece of shit. Rubbed my face in the fact that the graphics were marginally better over there, or whatever the hell, like those sort of console wars things. They don't really happen anymore because all the lines have become blurred. Like everything's an Xbox now, and Microsoft's putting shit everywhere. And Sony mostly wants to just make like IP franchises that they can mostly turn into movies and HBO series. So the lines aren't as clear as they used to be, but I can tell whenever a new Nintendo thing comes out that I just really want it to be the thing that child me wished Nintendo would be, but instead Nintendo's like, no, we want to be a profitable business that serves family-friendly content that is sustainable for us to be able to produce reliably. And yeah, I think I want like a Grand Theft Auto Pokemon game with hyper realistic graphics. I don't know what I'm looking for here. But anyway, that cinematic analysis of what that Mario Kart game is separately very impressive. It's just not what 12-year-old me wished Nintendo would be doing in 2025. So I'm still on the fence about buying one of these things. While I'm in Japan, I'm going to be there in June. I have I have an idea. I have like another childhood wish of like standing in line at a Yodobashi camera at 5 a.m. with all the other otaku and like buying this thing on day one. Of course, I'd be buying a Japanese regional locked version of it, which would be separately be interesting. I know I think I mentioned this last time around. But you know, then I have this big box to carry, and I travel in a backpack. So like maybe if I bought it, I'd give it to, you know, a Japanese friend with kids who actually use it. I don't know. I'd have to clear that one with Becky. So Becky, if you're listening, let me know if you're cool with that. You know who I'm thinking about. um, Next up in the gaming world, if you are a longtime Mac person, it's talking about child versions of us and how, you know, things played out differently than we would have wanted. You were either a PC kid or a Mac kid, and if you were a PC kid, you had all kinds of awesome fucking games for DOS. You had all of the first-person shooters that either id made, like Doom and Quake, or all of the first-person shooters that were based on the id tech and that engine. And so there's tons and tons of like very interesting shooter games for the PC. The Mac had nothing. The Mac had one series that was actually dedicated to the Mac and treated as a first class thing, and that was Bungie made a couple games called Marathon. And if you played Halo, which is Bungie's big group breakout game, ironically after Microsoft buys them, despite having a demo with Steve Jobs and Halo kind of being more of a isometric third person adventure game. In Halo, there is a lot of Marathon. You know, I've gone back and looked. I never actually played the original Marathon games. I came later to the party than that. But there's a lot of, even though Halo's based on a novel, there's a lot of shit from the Marathon games that kind of leached into the Halo universe and lore. And Bungie is making a new game, and it is called Marathon. And does it have anything to do with the other Marathon? Unclear, but it's not like one of those. It's not a story-driven first-person shooter. It is what's called an extraction shooter, as far as we understand it. It's going to ship, and it's going to cost money to buy it, to play it, which is fine. Games can do that still, but it's strictly multiplayer. It's a PvEVP. It's a player versus like computer-controlled enemies versus other players, like in teams and squads. And you're killing stuff and you're collecting loot, but then like you're trying to kill the other players and get their loot, and they're trying to kill you and get your loot before you get off the map with your loot. And this kind of game is popular with a narrow band of really hardcore gamers because the stakes are really high, right? Like I think The Division by Ubisoft was one of the first ones to do this, where, you know, you'd have these zones where you could go and you could do high stakes stuff and kill people and like get their loot and steal their loot, but then you could get killed and all your loot gets taken. So you just waste a ton of time if you go in there and you get shot, because all of the progress that you just made basically gets effectively undone if you get killed. And maybe your backpack's still there and you can go and try to reclaim it, but if somebody else gets it, then they get it, right? And so for some kind of people, that is fun. The extraction shooter concept, like Tarkov and other games, have come out, but they've all been kind of subcultural. They've been off the grid a little bit because it's a harder drug than a Fortnite, right? Than a battle royale where it's ephemeral. It's, you know, yeah, there's a winner and a loser, but everyone's having fun here. These ones, you watch these trailers or you watch how like esportsified they are. It's just so intense. People are like angry, and you know, you can, the loss aversion, right? Most people have loss aversion pretty strong. It's like, if I'm going to spend time working on something and then you're going to knock over my whole fucking sandcastle, that sounds not like a relaxing time to me. So that's probably, in my opinion, the reason that none of these extraction shooters have really broken through the mainstream. Additionally, Bungie is owned by Sony now, and Sony just released a live game multiplayer game called Condor, and tried to charge money for that. Also didn't really have much of a story, and Marathon doesn't seem to have very much of a story. They claim a story will be delivered, but it's not really through gameplay because it's not a story game, not a first-person or single-player game. Condor cost $40 or whatever it was. No one bought it. No one played it. It was dead on the vine immediately and was canceled within a week. right? If that happens to the next Bungie game, like Sony clearly wants this to be a massive hit, and they're throwing a lot of money at it in a glitz, but they also just had these big layoffs. Bungie has burned a bunch of goodwill with the community in terms of how Destiny 2 is wrapping up and kind of the dearth of content there. So who knows how this is going to play out? But I will share this cinematic trailer, because the cinematic trailer that they released is basically oh fuck, I forgot the name of the series. Netflix, is it Love, Death, Robots? Sex something robots. It's the computer animated anthology series of little short videos about, like, dark futures. And it's that one of the directors from several of those shorts. He made a marathon cinematic trailer that kind of shows the vibe of the game, very stylized, very interesting. It's like these robot shells that have human consciousnesses in them, and then each time they get killed and they have to respawn and they go back into the zone, they lose more of their identity in themselves and they can't remember who they are anymore. And they got some token to hold to kind of like, center themselves or hold on to their identity. Very, very interesting and trippy and dark. But like the problem here is, like, that's not the game. It's actually quite different tonally than like what the game actually is, which is a bunch of teenage boys yelling at each other. Probably a lot of N-word stuff and a lot of like, misogyny, and because like, tempers flare, people say stupid shit. Which is a separate thing you got to manage in these kinds of games. Yeah, I don't want to say it's doomed already and that the only thing we're going to get out of this is the cinematic trailer. But like, if you could buy stock and buy futures in which games are going to be successful, I would not be trading Marathon very highly. One game that I am excited about, which is also, a big question mark in terms of whether it's going to see market success. So Star Wars Celebration is happening in Tokyo right now. And it's an annual event. Now here in Orlando, we know a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans. I know several people who went to Celebration. They're out in Tokyo right now. I think that the actual conference is wrapped, and I think they're over at Tokyo Disney. But the only news that I saw that I gave two fucks about was a new game was announced that is being published by Electronic Arts, run through Respawn Entertainment, which is the studio that made Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. Which are very good games, kind of like Souls-like light games. And I forgot I should probably have the names of these studios in front of me, but if you watch this YouTube, you'll see it. A new studio that's from a whole bunch of former Firaxis guys. And Firaxis famously made XCOM, XCOM 2, and other XCOM-like games, where those games are turn-based tactical games where you put your little soldiers on the map and you decide, here's what you all do. You shoot and you cover and you do this. And you explore the map in a certain way, and the enemies are doing the same thing. And so it has this sort of board game-like quality of military tactics. And it's an acquired taste for sure. It's a slower burn, and it's one of those things where it's like it's kind of like chess, right? You make 5 really dumb moves in the beginning of a match, and then you only find out 45 minutes later that you were like fucked the whole time. So it kind of has the same quality of like, boy, I just wasted a lot of time on that, right? When I never even had a chance and I didn't realize it. But this one, called Star Wars Zero Company, seems to have a lot of story. It's kind of like intentionally saying this is a story within a story. The Clone Wars are happening right now, but this is the story you didn't hear because we're subversive and spies and we're cool. And so you could tell something entirely new and grittier. And I love new and gritty. So, had more Andor kind of energy, which was the only real of the Disney Star Wars content that really clicked with me other than The Last Jedi. I was like, yeah, Andor's great. So this looks really good. I can get behind these tactical games if there's some compelling narrative. So check that out. Watch for that in 2026. Last bit of game news here. This is a sad one. Not sad like tearjerker, but sad this is the world we live in sad. Almost 19% of Japanese people in their 20s have spent so much money on gacha games that they struggled to cover living expenses. And that's according to a survey. And the headline is the story, So I'll share the link. I don't know if there's much to click here, but gacha games refer to any game where it's a free to play mobile game typically. You can play the game, but to do anything interesting, eventually you'll hit a wall, either a timer or it's just so much work to unlock the character that you want or the skin that you want for that character that it's much easier just to pay real money to either get a loot box and like roll for a random chance at something, or pay to win and just pay to get the thing that you want. And there's all sorts of different ways to justify it, but like this really hacks into our dopamine receptors, or what we call dopamine receptors in pop culture, to like describe this phenomenon where people will get addicted to it. And then a very small percentage of these players will become whales, and they will spend a lot of money, and like a life-destroying amount of money in these games. In Japan, I've noticed that the culture is a little bit different there, because here it seems like there are 95% of people who will never pay a fucking dime, and then 5% who will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on credit. In Japan, it seems like when I'm watching people on the trains and I talk to people, a much larger proportion will spend some amount of money, and a larger proportion than here will spend an inadvisable amount of money. But in general, in Japan, people don't have like literal fortunes to spend or availability of credit that would like let them spend on the order of hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars against these games. Like we often see like, finance bros here just blowing some dude blows 600 grand on Clash of Clans so he can win against his stupid finance bro friend. Over there, like, it doesn't take a lot of spending in these games to make it difficult to pay rent because of how wages have stagnated and inflation has occurred, and the yen is currently so suppressed. So 19% of Japanese people in their 20s have spent so much on gacha games that they can't pay rent. That seems bad. So when Apple complains that they can't be regulated, and that the App Store payment system and stuff, like Apple makes 30% of all that money just goes right into Apple's pocket. Android and Google Play does this too, but in Japan particularly, like iPhone is dominant. And so this is a lot of money going to Apple from people who can't really afford it necessarily. But if the alternative is we make Apple like open up the App Store, which Japan is separately trying to do, like these payment schemes and payment systems are only going to get more, you're going to have a one button that has like the loan shark icon on it. And then you're going to have some Yakuza coming to bust your knees open. So like that's the closest thing we have to a legal remedy for this so far, which seems kind of fucked. All right, well, I just made myself sad. Moving on to the Apple stuff. We got some interesting Apple stuff this time. Vision, as in Vision Pro, Vision OS. We're getting to where there's smoke, there's fire amount of. I'm going to share a cornucopia of, I think, 4 links. Different news on Vision Pro stuff. We went from, so the Vision Pro launched in February of 24. So we're a little over a year of having them in hand. It was announced in June 23. And so we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of its being announced as we approach WWDC. New hardware for Apple does 2 things at once. It's very early. It's usually very underpowered relative to what it needs to be. And it's usually not anywhere near ready to be on the sort of annual cadence of hardware refreshes, or the routine cadence of hardware refreshes, because Apple doesn't really know what it is yet. That's been the case with a lot of their product lines in the past. It's curious because Apple has played this out in different ways. One is to release a hardware revision very, very quickly, quicker than you'd expect, because there's like the iPad 3, for example. Like if you look at the original iPad, the iPad 2, that was like a normal-ish cadence, but then the iPad 3 comes out, and it's the first Retina one, but it's also heavy as a fucking brick. I remember I fell asleep and I dropped an iPad 3 on my face once. I almost I could feel the cartilage in my nose twist. Maybe that's why I got a little bit of a deviated septum. Maybe that's why I snore. Where's the class action lawsuit? But then the iPad 4 was out just like 5 months later to fix a lot of those problems. And I remember feeling like such a fucking sucker. So, it could be that like they wanted to follow up with the Vision Pro with a sequel right away, but it's such a low volume product that it's been interesting. Like I fully expect not to see another piece of Vision Pro hardware expected until I saw some of these links. Like until winter of 26, maybe spring of 26. Like this thing's a dev kit. It's kind of doing the thing that it's supposed to do. If you're going to do anything new with it, it would be to make it a little bit more mass market appealing. But like right now, strategically, I don't know if it serves Apple's interest to make it more mass market appealing, like in terms of like spending a lot of energy. Because like so many of the technologies that they need to make Vision Pro successful are moonshot R&D phase right now. That just having it out there and having people sort of be able to cook in it right now at a simmer, like I'm doing, that's the real value proposition. But they, at the same time, they are getting valuable product feedback. And so it sounds like several things are happening at once. We've got Mark Gurman has had various reports. There have been a couple corroborating leaks. It might just all be ultimately down to Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, and these are just multiple newsletters now that have mentioned it. Yeah, no, there's a couple Twitter leakers too, who've leaked stuff in the past. Like one shows a new power connector for the battery. Right now, that's a white cable, white connector, and this is like the midnight blue finish. And so like now we're getting to the point where like if there's a particular color of a particular plug, like that's later in the game than you would necessarily think. That probably means it's entering mass production soon. So the plug changes. There's more pins on the plug, which is interesting. It means more power going to something or other. Rumor is it's one of several of these rumors is that there is a Vision Air in the works, which is lighter weight. It is probably, hopefully, the same screens, but otherwise considered to be cheaper somehow. One would imagine not with the lenticular display of your unnecessary eyeballs in the front of it. The other one, is like it was originally going to just be a rev from the M2 processor to the M5 processor. But that once they got their hands dirty, they figured they could make these other improvements too. From an ergonomic perspective, I think Apple's gotten a lot of feedback that their head strap solution was not good. I tried giving them that feedback by complaining on the internet in June of 23, but they weren't having it. So hopefully they actually fucking figure that out this time, even if it doesn't look great with a big clump of hair on the top of your head. Yes. There's a third one that I find really interesting too, which is like a potential for a Mac tethered product that you plug into a Mac or otherwise have extremely low latency and high bandwidth, presumably to do Mac Virtual Display first and foremost, and maybe also to act as a dev kit strictly. Like if you're interested in vision stuff and you don't want to spend $3,500 on all of the sensors and this is a self-contained unit with the battery and all the nonsense, right? Maybe you just get the tethered one and you use it with a laptop connected, and that way you have a higher bandwidth way to do the Mac Virtual Display, and like there's no latency there. Like honestly, if that was a product, that's probably the one I would buy, because I am no problem whatsoever always using it in conjunction with my computer being right there. Yeah, so if that's the thing and it's lightweight and I can travel with it like my X-Real glasses and it's got those amazing, micro LED 4K displays, I'm all in. That would be great. So anyway, stay tuned. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't expect to hear anything at Dub in June, but we might see something in the fall. I don't know. I don't know. It's such a low volume product, and they've already made all of the ones that they're going to make, that they're the ones who know what their inventory looks like. And so it might, if they've already sold through everything and they just want to kind of keep stiff arming Meta with a vision of where Vision's going to be, it might actually make sense for them to pre-announce something, even if it's not close to ready to ship yet in June, or especially if it has something to do with their broader story of, whatever theme they want to emphasize. Because as a Halo product right now, with Vision Pro being a thing that most people won't buy, but might be like a nod to the future or something, it's something you can use as a centerpiece to tell a story. So there's a chance we'll hear about it. And I hope we do, because I find it to be a fascinating platform and I'm always interested in what the future looks like. Oh, one other leak. Wayne Ma at The Information. The Information is a very expensive publication that is all strictly paywalled. I did not use a tool to unpaywall this one, but John Gruber did a good write up, and I'll link to it. Basically, if you're interested in more of the turmoil inside of the Siri group that led to the Apple Intelligence kerfuffle, it's worth checking out. It's very interesting. These details indicate that this is like a badly managed group, and the through line seems to be that John Giangidro, the guy who basically got ousted in favor of Mike Rockwell, probably it sounds like he came to the Siri group and the AI group more with a research and R&D mind, not so much a project delivery execution focused mind, and that might actually have been the right person for the job at the time in the pre-GPT era, because they might have needed a big ground up rethink of what Siri could be long term. But when push came to shove and Apple needed to just iterate and roll on this existing product, and then way more so when ChatGPT came out, he just wasn't up to task. And his lieutenants were very much more extremely iterative small ball thinkers. And so you have this like big picture R&D guy with his head in the clouds is the image that's portrayed. And then his lieutenants are all focused on like, no, let's waste a year of our lives making it so that you can just say Siri, making her name, their name, its name. I don't know how to pro.
I can't get that info for you here.
It heard me. Wow, that was a whisper. Uh, but I didn't say hey in front of it, right? So they spent 2 years on that. I, in case you didn't hear, I don't know if the mic picked it up, but my dingus friend just hollered at me from across the room. Anyway, I'm just sharing it because apparently internally the AIML group. This is so great. The AIML group, AIML, think about that word in your head, at Apple was jokingly referred to as aimless. AIMLESS, aimless. And that's in terms of inter-office burns, that is a sick one. Separately, and this is the real banger, is Craig Federighi from the software group was so frustrated by the lack of progress and reliability. Like Vision Pro is supposed to be a much more voice controlled product. That was one of the first things we heard about it. Then we got it, and it did not seem to be that way. Uh, Craig Federighi starts his own intelligent systems group that has grown to almost the same size and is clearly shipping real features into the operating system. And so the whenever you've got a shadow team that's duplicating another department's work, usually a telltale sign of corporate dysfunction. And it's really honestly it's that it went on so long and that it got to this point is definitely an indictment on Tim Cook. He's the CEO. He's the one who's the boss of Craig and John Giangijada both report directly to Tim. This is going on for 2 years. Like this is a real eye off the ball kind of thing. It's hard to imagine a world where this is all going according to plan, right? And I know a lot of executives who like to give their lieutenants a lot of leash to try things and fail. But how much leash, right? Like I think one of the things that's always frustrated me about that strategy is that if it's totally fair and fine if you're seeing development happen, if you're seeing not development of computers, but like in the leader, in the person you're coaching or growing into this leadership capacity. Yes, they have to be able to make real decisions, own them. They have to be truly delegated. They have to be bought in. And then when they fuck up, they have to be able to experience the fuck up and then learn from it. They can't just be told the correct answer in advance. However, if you're going to commit a huge amount of corporate resources and time, precious time, to that person's flailing about to learn shit, and you're not seeing evidence that they're learning the lessons as they go and getting traction in pretty quick order, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. If they're still just treading water and going in circles, that's a get them out of there. You're a $1 trillion fucking company. You've got thousands of people underneath this person. They deserve a leader who's going to lead them. And if they're not ready to play Major League Baseball at that scale, if they don't have the chops, if they're the, you know, maybe they're the right person for a different seat on the bus. Maybe the seats on the bus changed because of external factors like ChatGPT taking off. But honestly, when you think about it, like, like I've got a lot of respect for Tim Cook and the leadership team. I'm not like one of those Apple fans who just shits on everything all the time. I think that what they've built is incredible, especially when you compare it operationally to what it was when Steve Jobs was alive. It is a completely different company while being simultaneously very much the same company. It's a very hard thing to do. But it means that they've also retained a lot of the same blind spots where Steve Jobs would keep a lot of dumb fuckers around for too long and fire a lot of the good ones. Last Apple bit. YouTube video. Share it with you. This might be a YouTube video that's original reporting, and it might be something that like somebody has basically just made a video to summarize an article. I didn't find the original article, and I was too lazy last night to click through and look at the description. I'm kind of admitting now that this breaking change is not real journalism, and I didn't do my full-blown research. I just really liked the thesis of this. This person dug into... There's a meme in the tech world, in the software world, that no one does native Swift development anymore for Apple or Java for Android. Everyone's doing React Native now. And I've known from 2018 onward, a lot of companies using React Native and then realizing they're spending way more money on it. And it's like a bad user experience, and the deploy stuff is hard, and upgrades are hard and it's the same story. It's always been the case with every single like phone gap in 2011 or 2010 all the way on to where we are today. Whenever you have some cross compiler or some intermediary layer between you and the foundation framework of the operating system, each new operating system release every year means that you're going to be slower on the 8-ball to get the updates because the framework needs to update after Apple's framework updates, which means that like now you're like 6 months late, and it's hard to get things up to date. React Native was designed to avoid a lot of that, but it still adds a lot of additional complexity in there. Hotwire Native, any of these tools that are like and it really honestly, anytime a tool's primary promise is you can code it this way and not have to learn this other way, it means that like you as the developer are prioritizing yourself and your creature comforts and your needs over that of something else. Something is giving up. It's like if I'm having computer basically have some sort of translation layer to what the computer really is designed to be written in or designed with, that's an affordance for my own sake. And so in this case, like users often suffer because the user experience isn't as good, or they're not getting as many like platform native features as they otherwise would. And in the case of like React Native, I see a lot of teams just like 24 people working on a single iOS app that would have normally been 2 or 3 people if they were just building a native Swift app and coding against an API. So anyway, this guy looks at it, and even though the React Native page says, hey, look at all these sites and all these companies that use React Native, and like with links to very often defunct apps, he pulled down the files and opened them up and can't find very many symbols for React Native, suggesting that companies like Walmart have pulled it entirely in favor of native frameworks, which is, in my opinion, quite interesting. Just put that out there. So maybe fewer people are using React Native than you think, and you should reset your priors to perhaps consider that it's time to learn Swift. And if the UI gets refreshed and Swift UI becomes like a better thing to do, coming here in iOS 19, like maybe it's finally time to like, bite the bullet. That's what I'm telling myself anyway. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. Looking ahead to the other stuff we got to talk about, the increasingly expanding dystopian future portion of the news section, which seems like it might deserve its own block at this point in the program. Which, we often are talking about AI stuff and what that means for our children's future. But with just so many interesting technologies right now that are all converging at once, and it's hard not to get a little bit depressed, because what I find interesting about this moment in technology is that stuff can be so simultaneously cool. Like whiz bang, wow, that's neat. But then also, as soon as you think for more than a few minutes about how humans will actually use it, you're like, oh god. This one by The Guardian points out that boarding passes and check-in could be scrapped in an air travel shakeup. Essentially, it's been a while, but in the modern era, like the 2000s is when we kind of converted to e-ticketing, right? So we have, a QR code either on a paper ticket that gets scanned, and that's how you board the plane, as opposed to something that was manually inspected. And then, of course, with the advent of smartphones and Apple Wallet and stuff, now it's very typical to not ever have a paper ticket, right? For even international and multi segment legs and all that, people just have it on their phones. Well, the check-in process is a similar anachronism of it's just archaic. Like, it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, that you have to check in on your thing, right? Like if your digital identity is just tagged to your phone, period, and the system knows you're supposed to be there or not supposed to be there based on some sort of, and that now we get into the sort of like tinfoil hat. If you're thinking in that mode of the way e-ticketing happened was it was a collaboration between all these different companies and these carriers. 55 people all have to go and get in a room and agree to all this stuff, and it's a multi-year process. And so apparently the next process is starting to eliminate all of this extra crap from the system. And what that means is, like, our phones are going to become much more important. In fact, one wonders, will it be possible to travel without a smartphone? What will people who don't have them, or minors who, maybe travel without a parent? Like, there will be solutions to this stuff. But look, the Apple with their ID system, like driver's licenses and stuff, a government ID in your wallet. That whole getting that in Apple Wallet and designing it the way that they did was in part Apple trying to get ahead of the curve on, you can share just the information with the officer that you want. You basically tap in and it's like, I'm willing to like I scan. It says this reader wants to know your name and your age, right? But not maybe your gender and this other stuff, right? It'll say, like, these are the check marks of what will be read if you confirm in Face ID now, and then you tap again, right? The uptake on Apple's particular technology has not been super duper high, but like it is part of a standard, and theoretically other, like, some municipalities, some state agencies are working with them, and of course they're in certain states, but it's like total, it's all over the map in terms of like whether or not those IDs are actually usable for anything. Like, if you could drive in Colorado with just your Apple Wallet right now, like, it varies from state to state. And in a world where our phone is our identity and our ticket, and everything ties back to the phone, ultimately there's not a paper backup. If you're in an airport and you're going through security and they take your phone, like, you're kind of a prisoner there. Sure, if they make you unlock it, if they like one, just read the article and think about it from like a how could this go wrong perspective, and you can imagine ways that this could go wrong that are not super great. Because what I imagine, look, when Apple Pay came out, right? I loved the idea of just having, the tap and clink, and, or in that case, it was like cover it over your thumb. But then all of the big interests that existed, remember Currency, like the stupid fucking consortium, like Walmart and Kroger and all these, companies that didn't want to pay Apple 0.15% on every swipe. They tried making a QR code payment system that would only tie to ACH on a checking account, even though, like, the demo of people who would be going that route because they didn't have iPhones or whatever, were very often people without checking accounts, like underbanked populations. Like, none of it made sense, and the QR code thing didn't work, and it was all nonsense, right? But like, one imagines that, like, any sort of international standard that depends on this stuff, like, will they actually go the secure route and do the kind of thing Apple's doing, where like people who are holding the phones actually have the power over what gets shared? Or will it be an app that you have to open the phone, in a totally unlocked state and potentially have to hand it over to somebody, especially in a security setting? I don't love it. So it's one part super cool, just easy breezy, get off your Uber or whatever and walk straight into the plane and stuff. One part absolutely terrifying. So I don't know. I personally I'm not a big believer in privacy, but I do like to think about these edge cases. I don't mind at all though. I get the face scanning when I'm getting on a plane. My face is everywhere. My face is right here, right now. You can see my face if you're on the YouTube, and I successfully uploaded this video. Read an article that 14-year-old me would have been very impressed by, because this is an idea that I had when I started driving cars around town, and you have to gas up for the first time. You start to see notice a lot of advertisements for lotto. You see a lot of people buying cigarettes and lotto tickets as a 15-16-year-old, and starting to become more aware of driving culture. You see a lot of people as they commute buying lotto tickets, or ads and billboards for the Powerball and how big it's getting in terms of the award. And I remember thinking many, many times, and probably thinking I was being very clever about this, is what? So if the Powerball's worth 87 billion goddamn dollars, some huge number, and then total, because I was also in advanced math classes, and I was doing the combinatorial math of but there's only a potential addressable number of tickets. So the total number of possible numbers you could buy is X, and that's quickly approaching the payout number. Now, of course, the lump sum would be lower than this, but once you get to the point where the payout is higher than the cost of buying every possible ticket, I remember 14-year-old me was why don't we just buy one of every ticket? And the answer, we now know, is there's an incredible plot in Texas to print every fucking lotto ticket. And they this group of, whether you think that they're scammers or just really smart assholes, came to Texas, and they partnered with people. They bought a bunch of these ticket printers, and then they're just printing and purchasing legally Texas lotto tickets on sort of read the numbers in this article. The number of tickets they had to print every single second to inside of the window of time when this lotto was eligible. So they would print all the fucking tickets, and then they won. So basically they defeated the lottery by buying all the tickets. And I just think that's fucking rad. That's so damn cool. And of course, Texas is mad, and they're they cheated, and we gotta get their money back. I was no, dude, lottos are fucking dumb. This is all stupid. What are you gonna rate limit how many tickets you can print? I 14-year-old me loved that story, so I threw it in the list. Threw it on the pile. Another one, and this is just great because it's another kind of counterintuitive. So there's a new study out. I linked to the actual university, which I had not heard of, and it has a .fi extension. So, I'm not here to tell you whether it's real. And their logo is also it's Finland, FI Finland. All right, cool. Alto. Anyway, I got nothing against Finland, but I'm suddenly suspicious. Now they did a study, and they said that when people are bad at computers, it's not off. We tend to think it's they need practice with computers. Maybe it's part of the digital divide, and they didn't get a lot of experience with computers, and that's why they're not good at computers. And this study is literally a lack of intelligence as opposed to a lack of training, maybe why people struggle with computers. So it's actually, if you're bad at your computer, you can't figure out how to do computer stuff, or you got a colleague and they can't figure out computer stuff, it might be that their brain don't work good. They just said it. They did the research to say dumb people suck at things. And I love it, because like we're not supposed to say that. That's not what we do anymore. But like I guess in the post, now that we're in this post woke backlash, it's like okay to have research that says dumb people are dumb and they can't do things good. Of course, like they try to take the article in a movement. It's like, and that's why the lost art of making UX approachable and understandable for parentheses dumb people is really important. So like I don't mean to, I'm not here to make fun of dumb people. Like the intelligence does vary up and down. It's just like I can't remember the last time I read an article that actually ascribed anything to intelligence. It's sort of seen as like uncouth to associate, you know, higher intelligent people being able to accomplish things at a better rate than people who are low intelligence, to the point where it's like this is research now. Like you can say like, what do we need to do research on all of the things that smart people can do better than all of the things that, dumb people would do? Like I don't know. We don't struggle with like people who are 8 feet tall have a much better time dunking basketballs than people who are 5 feet, right? Like I don't need that research. But the idea and maybe this just hit me like a ton of bricks because like I spent my entire career being like in an ideology that said anyone can do this with enough hard work and perseverance, but like then continue and repeatedly see like people even with the hard work and perseverance continue to struggle. And then like the only other thing I have to blame is like, well, the UX is bad or this is bad or whatever. And like it's a hostile environment and you dress up all of these excuses about like, well, they're legitimate reasons. They're systemic reasons why like computing is a goddamn dumpster fire. But like no one ever says the thing where it's like, and failing all of these 45 reasons why it's hard to work with computers and people fail and they struggle. Failing all those things, once you eliminate all those variables, maybe you're just dumb. So Finland, that might be the coolest. That might be the coolest thing Finland's done in a long damn time. Is just admit that some people are dumb. Microsoft has a study saying AI models still struggle to debug software. That's true. We've talked about this a bunch, but like, if you're building an MVP, if you're building a new thing with AI, it's much easier to start from nothing and into something and have that something be a norm core thing. When I was talking about the agentic thing that I did earlier with the Japan real estate listings in Python, it was like a blank slate. It didn't have to be perfect. It just had to work, right? That is easy. But if you have a big legacy system and you got to introspect it deeply, and you've got to be able to test it and write very, very like surgical precision, and also find a way to get feedback to make sure that those changes are safe. You just need a lot more ins and outs and like ways for the system to be the AI to be able to verify that what it's doing is working as it goes. And then at that point, you're pushing up against the context limits and so forth. So anyway, Microsoft confirms what we can already tell if you've used any of these tools, that it's not as good at debugging and fixing bugs as it is, frankly, creating new ones. There are a couple different articles floating around this last few weeks about the AI bots. So all of these web crawlers used to be crawling the web, robots.txt used to be crawling the web for search index building. We'd build a search index. We'd see, okay, so these are all the pages. Look at the HTML. This page links to all these pages. The Google had page rank and be like, okay, this page gets linked to a lot, so it must be a high quality page. And the new bot thing is we just need to consume as much human generated content as possible to teach our AIs how to read and write like a real boy. One of the things that stands out, there are two articles I'll share. This first one kind of drove me nuts because it's somebody who's got this Next.js Vercel app where it's clearly like what they're describing is it's a static site, but it's running with all of this extra code and extra server crap that it doesn't need. It could literally just be files, like with a static site generator like Hugo, like justin.searls.co even. But instead, they've got all this extra, cruft and like thinking that it's cheap and affordable or simple because it's serverless, but really like they're paying somebody to do stuff repeatedly. And so in this case, it sounds like this person has a website with a whole bunch of images, like image previews all over it. And instead of just like resizing all of the images at upload time once, they just like upload the images at full resolution and then they pay Vercel or whatever to transform those images down to like the appropriate pixel size for each client as they load the page, right? And this is a common way that like static hosts like Netlify make money is on image transforms. So you upload at whatever, and then it will automatically scale the images to meet clients' needs. And you maybe the first 1,000 transforms are free, but then after that, like they'll start charging you money because like resizing images or whatever costs money. And so as this person got slammed with requests to resize images redundantly, repeatedly for no good fucking reason, and if they thought about their architecture, it would have made sense. The how much did they charge? It would have been, yeah. So he got like 6,000 requests out of, and Vercel charges $5 for every 1,000 images, and then all of a sudden starts getting tens of thousands, and it would have been a really, really big, gigantic charge, right? So like, I have no sympathy, because if you just have a static website and you're like paying somebody to transfer, like he's the one who designed his website to not scale, right? And he's complaining that this is an AI chatbot problem, like an AI bot crawling problem. Like if you got a small ball website and you don't expect a lot of scale, then design it to be a small ball website and just make a thing that like will generate HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and put it someplace so that like my website can actually handle a lot of traffic because it's just static files. And there's no server-side component that has any sort of code running apart from the one responsibility of serving highly cached static files. And you can go a long way down that road, and even then very carefully add just AI endpoints or API endpoints that could get hit. But this sort of the lazy approach, again, maybe he AI generated, maybe he vibe coded his way to an unnecessarily complicated and expensive and convoluted Next.js Vercel app because that's a popular way to build apps. And now he's complaining about the LLM bots. I don't know, man. Like, you play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If your architecture sucks and you put it out there publicly, you're basically inviting the world to cost you money. So I have no sympathy for that one. But then this next story about AI bots did engender a certain amount of sympathy, because the web is very broken if this is the case. So Jan Wildeboer, who his picture, he's wearing a red fedora. Like, he works at Red Hat apparently, and he apparently loves his job. You scroll through, it's a short post, it's worth reading. Basically, he makes this observation that a lot of proxy services are advertising that they have hundreds of thousands of IP addresses through which you can do stuff like or have your own web crawler. So if I'm an AI company and I want to web crawl stuff to train my model or other things I might want to do, like maybe perform web searches on behalf of my users or any sort of thing that I might need. Or scraping Japanese real estate sites. There you go. Just like I want to do, right? If I do that a lot from my local computer, eventually those sites will block my computer, right? And if I put this thing up on a server and I spin up a whole bunch of VMs and they start scraping it, then that whole IP range block of that server might end up getting banned by those places. And beyond a certain point, scraping somebody a bunch and looking like a distributed denial of service attack, that line starts to blend. And that's how you wind up with anti-DDoS, anti-smurfing, all these like sort of technologies that the big dogs have designed to prevent people from being able to DOS massive portions of the internet and just take down gigantic services that everyone relies on. Those technologies start to get revved up and shoot you down if you try to hit them too hard. And one of the reasons why denial of service attacks have been so pernicious is that in the past, in like Windows XP days, right, you have old versions of operating systems that became insecure. They'd get loaded with malware, and now like you'd have a botnet of like every old Windows machine, right, for a long time, and that would just take down whole sections of the internet because some puppet master would take all of these little zombie Windows XP boxes and say, "Hey, go attack GitHub.com or whatever website they wanted to take down," and they'd be able to do it because it would be getting attacked from all corners. And if you're GitHub.com, you can't necessarily know, well, all of these are residential IP addresses. I don't know what's real and what's fake. So you have to use heuristics to figure out what's real and what's fake. What Jan seems to have figured out is like, if these people are advertising hundreds of thousands of IP addresses, where are they getting them? And then separately, like he digs in and realizes that they have like partnership networks. So the companies behind these proxies, they're subcontracting. That provide the IP addresses to these proxy services. Like, let's say you built an app, you built Candy Crush, and people are on your free-to-play app. If you install a third-party app framework, basically you pull in my dependency, I will be able to run code while that person's playing the Candy Crush game, the free-to-play mobile game. And you could think of it, because we had stories like this of third-party code running inside of free-to-play games, that while the game was running, while it had CPU time on your phone or on whatever device, it was actually mining Bitcoin and then uploading, results to some server somewhere. That felt really bad, and people were like, how dare you just use my phone to mine Bitcoin, right? I should be able to play this free game for free, damn it. Or free games can have ads or whatever, but somehow mining Bitcoin passed a line. Well, now with these proxy services, you install that app frame. Like, I'm an app developer. I install one of these proxy services app frameworks, and I deploy it with my app. And I don't really know what it does, and I don't think super hard about it, but I know they pay me a certain amount of money for each user. And then I deploy it out into the world, and the user's playing Candy Crush. And like what seems to be happening is now you're part of a botnet, because the proxy service can loan out CPU and your network bandwidth to go and do work for somebody else. And so like you're playing Candy Crush and there's no network activity really, but like gigabytes of data are flying up and down because somebody's training a model by searching the web and going to all these websites and stuff from your phone, which effectively becomes like a denial of service attack. Now that's really interesting. I think I don't know how to feel about that, right? From the perspective of somebody who's getting a free game to play, if it's using a lot of their bandwidth, sucks, I guess. Like if they have a limited amount of it, it's underhanded, but so is everything about ad supported or free. No such thing as free lunch, right? It's solving a problem that people trying to crawl the web and access the open web in a big way, like they really have. Supports the app developer by getting them paid, but at the same time, like you see how it all happens and it all makes sense, but it's just like it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It's like, not like this. This is gonna break shit. This is just not. You can admit that all of these things are indeed problems, but also that if this is the solution, we fucked up. So, yeah, it's not just training. It's like really like any sort of thing that depends on scraping, which is an increasing amount of stuff because as the web becomes less open, and fewer APIs and everyone's trying to build their walled garden, these sort of surreptitious ways to try to do intelligence gathering on indexing stuff that doesn't want to be indexed, you have to be a little bit sleuthy. So, oops. Over in the OpenAI corner, there's a lot of OpenAI shit going on. I'll just hammer through these real quick. Who's got the time? O3, which was previously O3 Mini, and O3 Mini High, which is the O3 Mini that's on drugs, is now just O3. So the O3 reasoning model is just a full-blown thing. That's out. So O4 mini, the next reasoning model, has a small version, O4 mini and O4 mini high. And in general, I've been using O3 mini high as my go-to for everything because it kind of feels like 4.0, but with like less chatter back and forth before I get what I want. Two things. One, so they're great. They're great. It's great. Additionally, they announced 4.1, but that's really only available on API and for tools like Copilot right now. So new models, not a lot of interesting stuff typically. 4.1 is good at coding, which I experienced yesterday and I tend to believe. O3 and O4, O3 is extremely expensive to run, something that's come out as well since it was announced. We thought it'd be expensive to run, but it's like literally like a lot of queries for these benchmark tests that can't get that it runs. Like just running against true O3 was like thousands of dollars per task of compute. That's expensive. O4 mini and O3 have both been found to hallucinate at way higher rates than their predecessors of O1 and O3 mini, respectively, which OpenAI has commented on. However, the story is kind of like, well, they both just make more claims than their predecessor models made, and so more claims in absolute terms means more hallucinations in absolute terms. But I'll tell you, like ever since reading that article, I've been using O4 mini high and been like, yeah, this is like everything it just told me was fully made up. And so now I'm being much more diligent about making sure that I actually get a cited source. I'm like, give me the link, right? And then, of course, I click the link and I'm back to the bad old days of GPT 3.5 Turbo, where the links it's generating for me are literally made up and they don't go anywhere. So I think they do have probably some knobs to twist. 4.1, I'm very happy with. I'll share links to all this shit. They also released an open source thing that's very similar to Claude Code called the Codex CLI. Basically, if you're somebody who doesn't live in IDEs all day but still want to benefit from the agentic lifestyle, you can run the Codex CLI locally, and it'll do shit for you given an OpenAI API key. I don't live in the terminal anymore. I've fully switched over to VS Code. I don't love it. I've tried my best to streamline it and try to make it more keyword focused and stuff. But I'm just so visual of a person that I don't know. I was a terminal Vim user for probably a good 8 or 9 years there, and I had a great time. But I've gotten lazy in my old age. I guess the last thing I say about OpenAI products is that I recently was doing a lot of research into Japanese real estate, and I was starting with asking O3 Mini for deep research, and it would often go 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It would answer questions. It would do a lot of research. It would find a lot of links. And I was specifically trying to understand how to hedge the yen, because obviously we're in a period of term, like quite a lot of volatility right now with all the trade war bullshit. And I was looking into what kind of accounts support this, and then also give you a good way to pull that money out without having to pay again to transfer it back to USD, only to put back into yen at an ATM or something. And it gave me a lot of very discouraging results because it was confidently saying a lot of shit was impossible, or giving me, declaring certain things to be true and linking me cited sources that said the things that the deep research was saying. But then I learned over time that I was asking questions that were more defensively minded. They were because I think about the worst case scenario, I worry about the worst case scenario, and then I kind of set deep research or set GPT off into go and explore all of my darkest worries and fears and validate or refute them. And if it was a friend consoling me, they'd be like, you're probably overthinking this. You're probably too worried. But because the AIs are so geared towards satisfying or believing, going along with the assumptions of the user, kind of to be agreeable. They all took me dreadfully seriously, which is to say that all of my unfounded fears were in part based on some assumptions that were fallacious. It would just not challenge those potentially fallacious assumptions and take the fear on face value and then really, really dig in. And so I was feeling like depressed. I kept getting bad answers to all these legal and finance and tax questions over and over again. And so I was like at the point where I was like, this is really hard. This is going to be a pain in the ass. And then I just started going to subreddits for like communities that do all of these things, find several subreddits. And I just started browsing, not even searching, just browsing and realizing like, wow, people dumber than me who are still able to use a computer somehow, people dumber than me have figured this out. And like, actually, if you do check a few of these boxes, it's not so bad after all. People do it all the time. I was like, man, like how is it that I have this AI that supposedly like half of its sources are links to Reddit on one hand, and then like over here, I'm just browsing Reddit and in much less time, like wall time, like looking at a clock, like I was actually able to answer my questions, find favorable answers to those questions, and come up with a plan and an optimistic outlook on the future. Whereas I'd spent like 2 days just fighting with getting deep research and all these tools to like kind of like continue to like, because like it would give me a declaration, it would give me an answer, and then I'd ask follow-ups, and I'd try or I'd start new conversations, and I'd try to figure out like, well, if that's not going to work, can I try this? And I was getting into such specific and such like arcane, just like edge casey kind of stuff. It was ugh. So anyway, when you have fear and uncertainty and doubt, sometimes these tools like AI tools can be useful. But be mindful of the fact that if you're asking it the wrong question, or if your question is loaded with potentially fallacious assumptions, they still probably aren't going to push back on you. I've heard that Gemini 2.5 Pro does a good job of trying to challenge fallacious assumptions up front. And maybe that's the one I need. It's like Quantum Leap, maybe the next model will be the leap home. I tend to doubt it. Ed Zitron, he's got a newsletter, and I think the theme of his newsletter is he writes newsletters that are way too fucking long. I almost gave in and used AI to summarize this newsletter for me. But then because the newsletter was about how AI is fucked, I felt like that would maybe the machines would lie to me. He's the guy. This is about a year ago. We did a podcast where I was summarizing his really great takedown of exactly why the executive drama and the bureaucratic dysfunction at Google was resulting very quickly in search becoming a much worse product, which seems to have borne out in the year since. This one is titled OpenAI is a Systemic Risk to the Tech Industry. And he goes in at great detail about the financial reasons why, like, if all of the numbers that OpenAI are saying, even their optimistic projections, if all of them are true, it still cannot succeed without fundamental changes to how they make money and on what scale they're making money in not a 5-year time horizon, but in like a 12-month time horizon. The money's got to come from somewhere, and it's not clear where it's going to come from. And then that's like the optimistic path. The realistic path is like, wow, they're like really, really like I don't know, like when Sam Altman's smiling and stuff, like I wonder how he feels in his heart. Like maybe he's a sociopath. Maybe he's just so comfortable with risk, or like a lot of these folks never really failed in their life, and so they, after a certain amount of time, they just feel like, well, I've got, it's always worked out so far, right? And they just keep on pumping that balloon, and it's never popped yet, so it must be safe to just keep pumping forever. I don't know what's going on in that guy's head. If I was him, I would not be sleeping. I would not be in a good place right now, because if I had the numbers in front of me that he is purported to be sharing with other people, and if I had additional, like, stressful insider knowledge, I'd be absolutely dead. So again, I try to be neutral about AI in terms of its impact on society, in terms of its efficacy as a technology, in terms of the long-term future and what it's going to really look like when we seem to be hitting diminishing returns in a lot of ways. But on the economics of its side, that is an open question, and it's more scrutable because we know what companies look like. We've seen these arcs before. Now, it's true that like stocks don't mean what stocks meant any like 10 years ago, thanks to meme stocks and the balkanization of our information ecosystem. But at the end of the day, money is still mostly money for now. And it's possible to look at some companies' finances, add up the numbers, and when the numbers don't add up, unless you ask ChatGPT if they do, like you can draw conclusions like, wow, OpenAI seems really fucked. And then if you look at all of like the large percentages of, like I think he said 6% of NVIDIA's gross revenue was going to be from code weavers, which is like a subcontracting, basically their only client being OpenAI, building additional server capacity for OpenAI because Microsoft had right of first refusal and decided not to take a certain chunk of OpenAI's increasing demand. So Codeweavers is doing it. So they're buying a bunch of processors for NVIDIA. If OpenAI goes bust, Codeweavers disappears. That's a huge publicly traded company now that's bust because it's their only customer. And that's 6% of NVIDIA's gross revenue lopped right off, right? And all that's going to fall to the bottom line. And so then their profits tank, right? And NVIDIA is the only one actually genuinely selling something and making real money right now. But even if if it ladders up that way, now you're thinking about all of the cloud providers and like how many signups and how like the growth of Azure and AWS, those numbers are going up in Google Cloud Platform. And so like right now, everybody's valuations and like the current, like the strength of the tech stocks that's been frankly over the last 5 years propping up the indexes because they've become such an outsized size of the market. Like you can totally see a story where all it takes is OpenAI to run too hot and fail. And it looks like they're going to fail, like not imminently, but if and when they fail, don't be surprised if it's just like a Lehman Brothers collapse. Like if it's one day AI, like OpenAI just turns off and demands a government bailout, I guess, or for all these big tech companies to come in, rush in somehow. But like at the acceleration of how fast they're needing more and more money every year, from like 5 billion 2 years ago to 14 billion last year to like, we're looking at 30 billion next year. They're spending more and more money to lose more and more money each year. And they're growing at a super linear rate. They've got a plan to be profitable in 2030, but it's not a plan. It's just like a declaration that they will once the Stargate thing is built in Texas. And even then, it's only going to take up 2/3 or whatever of the server demand. Like, where are you even going to get the power? Like, who? Like clearly, like the people even building this fucking server farms, the data centers, like they're brand new companies that have never done construction before and don't know how to negotiate with power companies and get like dedicated power. We're talking about like a gigawatt scale power. Like you read this whole fucking thing, like, or don't, like just take my vibes from this and say, whoa, yeah, like you use ChatGPT all you want, generate all the Studio Ghibli. It's Ghibli, by the way, not Ghibli. That would be like if a Ghibli would be the name of a turkey in a Studio Ghibli film, like gobble gobble, but also giblets. Now that would be a great name if they did shorts, like Pixar shorts in the beginning of the movie, the little 5-minute, little touching thing that like maybe a junior director gets to make. If Studio Ghibli films had giblets at the front. Anyway, it's Studio Ghibli. You can read the katakana because it says G in the beginning. But yeah, make all of the fucking Studio Ghibli images of you and your family that you want and then post them on social media as if they're interesting. Just do it. You're not spending your own money, but like the bill is going to come due at some point, and the heir to the SoftBank fortune is going to run out of money sooner or later, or they're just going to take it away from him. Yeah. Last bit of news here, and I'll call it. I wanted to end on a high note, so I put something after the AI cruft. It's a YouTube video from a company that has built a magnetic positioning system as an alternative to GPS that uses the quantum. It uses quantum technology somehow to basically be an unjammable system, because traditional radio frequencies and so forth. Don't block it. That's just how entanglement works. And it's also 50 times more accurate. So could you imagine, like, GPS being what it is, doesn't work indoors particularly well. It's there are blind spots, these satellites and so forth. Could you imagine having like extremely accurate location tracking that can't be jammed? Like the military applications of that. Yeah, really interesting stuff. And it could be potentially in every single smartphone based on the size that they're talking about and whatnot within 5-10 years. So that's pretty cool. That'll do it for the news. All right. I did not announce. This is version 35 of the podcast. Every one of these things has to have a breaking change release. At the front of the show, I didn't share the name of it because I wasn't going to talk about it a little bit later. But version 35, we're going to call it GPT Casserole. Because I have a recommendation for you, which is if you've got some leftovers or some ingredients that are about to go bad, rather than throw them away and waste food, instead waste some of Sam Altman's budget and some coal-fired power plant in Texas's power, and ask ChatGPT, hey, given these ingredients, here's a picture of my spice rack, and then here's like, I've got these chicken thighs that got to get used. I've got some rice that's been cooked. I've got, maybe yellow onions, potatoes, and pearl onions. What do I do? Right. So I did something like that. And then I said, oh yeah. And Becky also mentioned she wanted a casserole or something like an oven bake dish. And yeah, I've done this before and it's worked fine. But I did this recently because I didn't want. I'm on a kick where I'm trying to waste less food. I'm not a good person, but I hate throwing away shit because I'm cheap. So I I asked for it to design me a casserole. It gave me a few different options, and I made one. I made a big old GPT casserole of just spare parts, and it was great. It turned out really well, and I gave it constraints. I was like, I've got less than an hour, so figure it out. Tell me what to do. Tell me what the steps. And instead of structuring it like a recipe, it was just like, here's the steps. Like, here's what to do in what order. You're standing here. Like, go stand over there. 2, get out your shit. Start chopping onions. Okay, step 3. And so I was able to just kind of do it in order without necessarily like measuring out everything first and then thinking things through and then going through the steps. So yeah, it was very successful. And I just thought, maybe you could also appreciate a GPT casserole every now and then. If you've got food at your house and you got some leftover, or not leftovers, but like maybe like, you got some ingredients that are going to go bad and you're going to order groceries anyway, because it's not the ingredients that you happen to want that day. I thought this might be a fun way to, as a habit, start learning new recipes by taking advantage of stuff that you just got lying around the house. Now, of course, if you say, how much glue should I put on this pizza? And it says a lot of glue. Well, if you got a whole thing of rubber cement there, you should probably just pour the whole thing on unless you're going to use it for something else. Now, if it tells you to do that, use your judgment. But if I remember anything from childhood, it's that glue is delicious. So, only other recommendation this time around, and I don't know how to feel about it, is Becky and I were in the mood for an action-packed sci-fi romance last night. And I was like, what's on video on demand that does that? And again, ChatGPT, which is an increasing, just like how we used to Google for shit, I guess. I was just like, I need a shorter monosyllabic way to refer to it. My buddy G, told me to watch The Gorge on Apple TV. And I'd heard it was bad, but given the kind of mix of things I was asking for, it was actually sounded like a good fit. So we started watching The Gorge last night, and I really liked it a lot. The first hour or so was exactly my jam. But then it it takes a hard right turn into like body horror and like reminds you of Doom, like when you're like a lot of really like hellish shit. And Becky and I went from enjoying it to me being like, well, this is fine. And Becky would be like, this is not fine. This is almost bedtime. I need to sleep. And this is going to prevent my sleep from happening, you asshole. I was like, don't look at me. The AI told me to do it. And, do the thing for a few minutes where like, she kind of like dams her eyes and I try to like narrate spoken word what's kind of happening. But then it was pretty clear. It's like the movie's only halfway over and they're very much in hell. And this is now going to be like a buddy movie to get out of hell together. Sorry, this is a spoiler, but honestly, it's sort of the thing where it's like, I didn't want to watch a trailer. I wanted to go in blind and just watch the movie. And I'm still glad I didn't watch the trailer because it probably would have ruined the whole first half of the movie. But I don't know. I feel like it should have had a content warning. I'm not a big content warning guy, but it's been like, yo, this is gonna be disturbing-ish. I'm not like, I don't like horror movies typically, but I do like that horror movies at least have the temerity to like tell you up front and advertise themselves as this is a horror movie. It might look normal right now, but it's going to get dark. And so yeah, a lot of the criticisms about the movie apparently were about like rapid tonal shifts, and I can see why now. So we quit the movie halfway through. But if you're the kind of person like me who's totally cool with watching that shit, great. But it might not be the best date movie, is all I'm saying. Let's I've got nothing else to recommend because I'm still playing Avowed, and Avowed is really good, and I'm savoring every last moment. I've got like 80 hours into that thing, and that is a game that is like not designed to last that long, and I'm really fucking milking it. Just like I'm milking this little button right here on my Stream Deck.
You've got mail.
Because that's right, that's mailbag time, everybody. And I put out a post yesterday morning before I was going to record, because I declared mailbag bankruptcy because I had a lot of old crap in there. It was not, you were not sending your best, and so got a lot of emails about Care Bears, and I just never knew what to do with them. So if you sent me a picture of a blankie from when you were a kid, which 2 people did, to talk about Starbright or your favorite Care Bear or whatever. I didn't get to those. I declared bankruptcy, and then I woke up yesterday morning and was like, oh, the mailbag section is literally empty. I've got nothing. And so I put up a post saying, hey, if you want to get something in the mailbag, now's your chance. Well, if you want to get something in the mailbag, all you got to do is email podcast@searles.co. And honestly, if I don't read it, send it again, because I'm quickly learning that iCloud with custom domains is like extremely aggressive at junk mail filtering, and I've got to stay on that shit. So I've got a reminder now every 30 days to actually manually scan my junk before it gets auto purged, because I found like 3 or 4 bangers, like really good ones. A new friend Billy listens to the show sometimes. He said, when he saw the video, he there's 2 kinds of people: the people who actually like put in the music and post, and the people who like put in the podcast music and dance to it on camera. By looking at the video, he knew which I was, and I'm a listen to the music live. I'm here to share this experience with you. The point of this music in this program is to set the tone, and I got to be there too. Anyway, that doesn't count as an email. It was an email, but it was not for this. Anywho, so starting from nothing yesterday, and then of course getting delayed and not being able to do the podcast recording yesterday, I actually have a handful of emails. Nate writes in, 1-word email, because I'd asked, hey, if you want to write an email, you can write an email. Get on the show. Nate writes in, 1-word email, just the word no. Thanks, Nate. You can write me anytime, podcast@searles.co. Okay, check. Read Nate's email. This happens a lot, and I find this one ironic. A lot of times people will write into a program and they'll say, hey, I just want to give you this podcast feedback, or this idea, or tell you the story. And then like, it's really good. And you're like, oh, this is wonderful. I can't wait to, and then the last line is, please don't read this on the air. Not like, please, like, let me be anonymous, but rather, like, just don't use this content. I guess some of you are all shy. I get it. I'm really shy too. I just don't let myself feel that part of me anymore. Anonymous wrote in. Somebody wrote in yesterday after I asked, hey, I got nothing to talk about on my podcast. They wrote in. They told me a great little story. And then they said, please don't read this on the air. So I'll read that much, I guess. I'm not going to read your story. It was a really good story, though. Whoever you are, anonymous, good Lord. Just, I don't know, be braver. Make up a name. Say, call me something else, right? Like if you want to be like, share something anonymous. If you got something dark in your life, something tragic, something hilarious, something like a story about a coworker that you can obfuscate enough to get away with, and you just want me to tell an interesting thing, go nuts. I know where I'm going to end this. So Mike wrote in, Mike McQuaid, friend of the show, the homebrew guy, also the work brew guy. This is business. He wrote in with 3 questions. I'm going to read one today, and I'm going to save one for later, just in case I need more. So I'm going to say 3 questions. First one, you have no pets. You have to get 1 or more pets, or everyone you love dies. What pets are you getting and why? Well, first of all, I hope this isn't true. I hope this is a hypothetical. Hypothetically, if I had to get 1 or more pets or everyone I loved died, what pets would I get? I would say the use of plural here makes me wonder, is that for each pet that I acquire, 1 more person that I love continues to live? Or is it just any number of pets will do? Because as a pet minimalist, I think my answer is going to be, I will take the minimum number of pets, please. So let's just say 1 pet. Which pet would it be? Now I could just cop out and say, I'll get a hermit crab, right? Put it in a little cage. I had a hermit crab as a kid. It was great. You just moistened its sponge every now and then, and it was fine. Our babysitter was watching the house while we were on vacation once and failed to moisten the sponge, and Mr. Hermie was dead when we got home, and that was the first time my brother and I had to deal with death. Not great. So yeah, I would my cop-out answer is I would get a hermit crab or something that would barely require my existence to function, or whose death I wouldn't find very sad. But that's probably not what you're fishing for here. I think something that would be very on brand for me is to have a bird, like a tropical bird that could talk. I assume it's not just parrots, but maybe parrot, like a squawky, annoying, sassy bird would be very on brand, and it would drive me fucking nuts immediately. I would immediately regret it. But if it developed a personality, I'd also have to respect it. So we have the sanctuary right nearby too. So it's like, as soon as like whatever the immediate short-term threat is of my family being murdered, if I were not to acquire and adopt a pet, gunpoint adoptions rarely turn out. But let's say that like I take the pet and then you go away and you take the gun off the heads of my family, and you've cleared the corner and I'm no longer concerned about you. If that parrot was annoying, I've got this beautiful Audubon sanctuary right behind the house. I could just set them free and hope they don't come back. Because every morning I wake up and I just hear beautiful tropical bird sounds. And even that gets kind of old. I do feel like I'm in a Disney movie sometimes. Maybe I should just like create a delicious pie and put it out on the windowsill so that the birds can sing a little bit closer to the house. But yeah, they're all over the place. All right. Well, thanks for the question, Mike. Thanks for the real question. I got one more. We'll end on this one. Len Testa from the Disney Dish and the creator of Turing Plans and a friend of mine. Len writes in, subject, Epic Universe. Len also has some insider knowledge that this email Well, and Len has a lot of insider knowledge about a lot of things. He's a very well-informed person. One such thing is that I got to go to Epic Universe a couple of times now on preview days, but the embargoes are up because now annual pass holders can go. Epic Universe being the new theme park in Orlando by the Universal Studios folks. We'll talk about it, I guess, because he's asking about it. He says, what was your favorite part of Epic Universe? What part has you the most concerned when it comes to high crowd periods like Christmas? So, if you don't know Len or his businesses, touring plans helps you plan out how to make the most of your time in the parks. He's a computer scientist. He developed it's like a traveling salesman problem because you have like all of these different nodes on a graph of like different attractions in a theme park. And you want to know like not the distance between those points, but rather like how would you optimize the wait time between those things, like to maximize the number of attractions you can go to, because the duration of the wait changes throughout the day, and also of course by arbitrary things like what day of the year it is and the weather and the crowd levels. So he thinks a lot about not just statically like how is a theme park, but like how is a theme park when it's busy, and like where are the pressure points? Like where will it get overloaded first, right? We're like in a theory of constraints perspective, which is I appreciate about Len's mind and the way that he approaches it, because I think the operation side is the most interesting thing about theme parks. Set the table a little bit. So Epic Universe is a hub and spoke style theme park like a lot of them, except usually that conceit is a little bit hidden. You know, like you've got the castle in the middle of the park and now you're in Adventureland over here, or Liberty Square over there, or Fantasyland in the back, or on the right you got Tomorrowland. Like, you know that it's a hub and spoke, but it's like they try to blend seamlessly most of the time. Epic Universe is sort of like, you know what, like let's just fuck it, own the conceit. You got this hub area called like the Celestial, not Gardens, Celestial something or other. It's basically like extremely generic, frankly. It's like supposed to be like stars and moons, but like it just kind of looks like brass, steampunky, futurist, like a Jules Verne kind of motif. And it's, you know, it's in the center of the park, and so like that part's never going to really change, so it makes sense to do something bland and not have it be based on a particular intellectual property. And then they have portals, and you walk through the portals to each of the 5 little lands inside. Like, trying to name them. They got the Monsters universe. They've got the Harry Potter, really the Wizarding World Fantastic Beast Paris of 1920s or whatever. As a second one. They've got the Isles of Berk or whatever, the How to Train Your Dragon one. They got Super Nintendo World. Actually, I think those are the 4. They have an expansion pad to build a 5th, is my understanding. The Super Nintendo World is very, very similar to the Osaka one. Has the same attractions. Everything's a little bit shorter. For other reasons that I learned. So his question, what's your favorite part? I could talk about Epic Universe for 3 hours and my voice wouldn't hold up, so I will spare you. I'll share some highlights maybe once I've thought about what my favorite part was. From a game-respecting game perspective, I've never seen How to Train Your Dragon. I have no interest in seeing it, really. I might see it just to say I've seen it. That land is very densely packed with attractions and food. There's 2 quick service food places and 1 table delivery place that looks like a really cool, like big hall. And it was like extremely meat heavy, which was impressive too, because like typically protein's hard to find in theme parks. All the food at Epic, favorite part of Epic Universe by far. The food seems great everywhere. Like there's a great barbecue place. Both of the table service places, table delivery places, you have to mobile order and somebody brings you food. You don't have like a waiter. At the Harry Potter place are awesome. There's like a relatively fine dining, like traditional restaurant in the middle of the park in the Celestial whatever Gardens. And then, the all of the How to Train Your Dragon food looked over the top and really good. Like people, like there's a You get these like cones of like big kind of deep fried pitas full of like mac and cheese. It's the most American fucking thing ever. These things are goddamn massive. So the food's probably the most like impressive thing, full stop. But really, like the density of, because he's, even though it's called Epic, and even though they've moved it further away, it's south of I-4, meaning it's like near the convention center, so it's quite distant from the existing Universal Studios parks. It's not just like a third gate right next door. That gave me the impression, because they have all this land to play with, that they were going to make these lands fucking huge. But the lands are not that big. The How to Train Your Dragon land is relatively compact, but they really, really densely packed it in. So they've got 3 food service places. They've got what's going to be a super duper popular meet and greet, which is like 2-hour plus waits to meet this animatronic dragon, which is, I believe, a skinned Boston Dynamics dog. You know, like those robot dogs that can shoot people and kill them and do somersaults. That, but with like a dragon outfit on. They've got not a kiddie coaster, but like a low intensity coaster that's still pretty fast and like really, really fun. A lot like Slinky Dog at Disney Hollywood Studios. Rode that. That was great. That was really good, actually. It's like if you've got a kid who did Slinky Dog as their first coaster, this would be a great second coaster. Well, or if you're a big wimp like me and generally don't like coasters very much, it's a good one. They've got another ride that's sort of like Pixie. It's like a dragon simulator. It's like to simulate what it'd be like to fly a dragon, and you can twist it, and it's one of those spinny top things. It's kind of like a G-force simulator almost. It was too much for me. I didn't do that one. It's a bit of a line. And then they've got another attraction, which is sort of it's like a water boat ride where like you're on a pontoon and you have water cannons and you can shoot targets, and which is good, or you can shoot the wrong thing and then get everyone in your boat sprayed. And so having water features in the middle of the area and also having an attraction built into that is pretty impressive. And they also had really good walk around characters. Friend of a friend was playing a Nord, and he was extremely funny and very, very good at being a Nord. Gave us a lot of shit. So yeah, that area is really good. It's in terms of the theming, the execution, the design. Thing is, like, I have no interest in that intellectual property. I don't care. Like, it was just not my era. But if you grew up with the How to Train Your Dragon stuff, that's probably pretty mind blowing. The Harry Potter stuff, like the area itself, is massive. The buildings are 1-to-1 scale as opposed to Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley, which is the traditional, more smaller scale, forced perspective. So these are real full scale size buildings, but it's also like the roads are, if anything, wider than they would be in real Paris, which seems weird. And it lends this sort of sense of sparseness to everything. Like, whereas in Diagon Alley, you feel hemmed in with like stores everywhere. You feel like crowded with content, with stuff to look at and stare at and see. And there's more vitality and movement. Whereas this seems more sterile and just like, yeah, I'm in a suspiciously clean Paris right now. Right. Like, yeah, that it's cool. It's great. We explored every nook and cranny. We had an opportunity to check it out when there was basically nobody in the park, and that's the best time to look at those things because there's lots of little touches. But there's a what's it called? Cirque la Arcanu, like the arcane circus. Basically, a circus tent in the middle that looks like a little circus tent, just like in the Fantastic Beasts second movie. And you go into it, and then it's like a huge, magically large theater. And it's like you see Fantastic Beasts stuff, and there's a story, and it's like a really fucking good show. Like, it's technically impressive. It's got good performances. It's only got like 3 or 4 human actors, and the whole production is only like 27 minutes long. But like, everyone's kind of tearing up at the end. It was really, really fucking good. So it's probably the best show I've ever seen in a theme park, full stop. So strictly in terms of like best attraction, it's that show, no doubt. What part has you the most concerned when it comes to high crowd periods like Christmas? Honestly, like, so the two, there are 3 rides that like hold up that park right now in terms of crowd capacity. Maybe 4. So there's the Ministry of Magic ride, which somehow you magically get pulled out of 1920s France, and then you're back into like just after the final Harry Potter film, which is of course probably the result of the Fantastic Beasts franchise failing. That one operationally is apparently extremely finicky and will just have a lot of downtime probably forever. And so when that goes down, the crowds have to go somewhere else, and when they go somewhere else, you know, it just crowds up everything else, and so all the other lines get longer, right? So let's say that goes down, and then you have the second highest, you know, demand, and it's a relatively high capacity ride, and it would be really reliable, but for the fact it is chock-a-block with really complex, full-size, like large animatronics. The animatronics are very, very impressive on this attraction. It is the Monsters Unchained. It takes place in Frankenstein's castle over in Monsters World, and it uses a similar ride vehicle if you ever did the Harry Potter Castle ride at Universal Studios, where you're kind of on this reticulating arm that moves on a track, like on a treadmill track throughout the attraction. It's very impressive. But it's also like, it's kind of more mild than that Harry Potter ride, because like a lot of people got motion sick on that. It's like, if you don't care about monsters, it's sort of just like, all right, that's cool. Again, like, I think my biggest problem with Epic Universe is like, I don't give a fuck about any of these IPs other than Nintendo World. I would, you know, I'd be down if the Harry Potter land was really a Harry Potter thing, I guess, because just Becky loves it so much. But like, she didn't even remember any of the references from Fantastic Beasts, so we decided to rewatch the movie, and then we got 30 minutes in and she fell asleep. I don't know. So the IP that they chose seems really weak. And the 2 that are the best, they don't even own. And really the 3, like they don't own monsters. Like they have their own monsters and they own those, but like it's mostly based on public domain works. If somebody else were to come out and actually, like last year, make a fucking really great Dracula movie, if it's outside the Universal canon, like they can't touch that, right? So anyway, yeah. So Ministry goes down. Everyone rushes to Monsters. If Monsters Unchained went down, which it has been having pretty severe operational issues if you're reading Reddit in the last few days. So lots of understandable. Those 2 go down, and now you've got this coaster dueling, like a dueling coaster in the middle of the park called Stardust Racers, I think. And it's too intense for me. I wouldn't do it. It looks very impressive. It's just like a freestanding rail coaster-assed coaster. That's a real people eater. It seems like really high capacity. People would go there, then that would even get slow. The thing about it is, from a capacity perspective, Nintendo Land is going to be slammed 24/7. They've got the Mario Kart ride, which is an AR ride where you put on like a little like visor and a helmet, and you can, wherever you're looking or wherever your head's tracked to, you can press a button on your steering wheel as you're playing Mario Kart. So there's times where you have to like move to the right, move to the left to kind of get through the track. But then as you're looking around, you can shoot turtle shells at Mario enemies while trying to not hit your Mario team allies. And you pass through question blocks, which recharges your shells, and you earn coins. And so it's simultaneously a ride and a game, and it's pretty long. Good ride. Reasonably high capacity, but more importantly, it's extremely operationally sound. Because there's not that many physical props and effects, because you're kind of half looking at this AR glass. And so the ride vehicle, all the system is pretty reliable. They've got a Yoshi ride, which is more of a kid ride. It's not a lot to do. It's more like a people mover. You kind of get to see the land from a different vantage point. It looks pretty nice, especially on a nice day. And then in the back, they've got a Donkey Kong attraction, which you're in a Diddy Kong, Donkey Kong mine cart. And the whole thing is about this jump that happens in the middle. It's a fake jump, but it's supposed to feel like a jump. I was not impressed by that ride. I was really looking forward to it. I flew to Japan to ride it, and then they delayed the opening of the park. And so I did not get to ride it until just recently. And I thought it was mediocre. It It was very short. It was not that interesting. It was not thrilling because it was like you're moving at a relatively slow pace. It's a little bit herky jerky. And then the jump itself was like the physics were wrong. It didn't feel like a jump. It felt like just kind of going up and down. And it felt like a more like the Blues Brothers car in slow motion as it jumps and then it's about to land, but without the comedic timing. And so at a certain point, you're just like, oh yeah, I'm jumping. But here's what sucks about that ride. First of all, lots of things are problematic about that ride, but one is like that jump exists not for the person in the car doing the jump. Because there's no story element. You just like you do it and it happens and you don't really think about it. There's no anticipation or buildup because it's just like it's right in front of you and you just go over it. It's really about like the sight line, the view for the person who's approaching, like while they're walking towards the attraction, they're seeing these mine carts jump like that. And even the timing is mostly for the people who are watching from the ground to be like excited about getting in line for 2.5 hours for that thing. And that thing's always going to have long lines because it can each vehicle only holds 4 people, and those vehicles were launching ideally like optimistically like every 20 seconds. So that's really really low capacity. Like they'll struggle probably to hit 800 people per hour in a park that could have 30,000 people in it. So a lot of people aren't going to get to ride that one either. And so even with the parks, with its current stock of attractions, even if everything's operating smoothly, like people are going to go to this thing and they're only going to be able to ride 2 or 3 of the things that they want to ride. And there's a lot more food than there are attractions. Only a couple shows, like, and I was expecting a lot more, right? From a capacity perspective on day one. Just the way Epic talked about this, like this is bigger than all our 2 other parks combined. The kind of things that they said about it. Now, they will expand it, but then now that we have an idea of like what those expansion pads are and how much are, the expandability of this park is also much more limited than we thought. So I think it's overhyped. And I think at high crowd periods like Christmas, like they're going to sell a lot of express passes. They're going to sell a lot of VIP tours. You know, the other thing about it too is even in shoulder season, NBC Universal folks have made clear that like their plan, part of the portal design of really having these cordoned off is to be able to do sellouts for corporate events because it's right by the convention center. So you got a convention in town, you know, maybe you're I don't know, Whirlpool or whatever, and you close out one of the portals. Like, will they ever close out the Mario Land? Probably not. So would they ever do Monsters? Well, that's got that really popular ride. So you imagine them even doing one closeout for a corporate thing. Like that would be a big payday, but then the guests are going to be completely just swamped, right? With everything else. Unless they close early, which Universal often do. Anyway, this is a very long-winded way to kind of like sneak in all of my opinions to try to answer the question, how what part has me the most concerned at Christmas? Customer satisfaction, I guess. I mean, like the Harry Potter world only has one attraction currently. The second one was scrapped and hopefully will be restarted soon. But it's big. People can, there's stuff to kind of do and loiter around. They've got a new wand game to play. Yeah, I I think that if they have operational issues, high capacity times are going to be real bad. Like I I think that their marketing did them a disservice. Like the hype that they generated for this thing, it should have been more muted. This should have been like clearly positioned as this is the start of something and it's a low capacity or it's a half day park or something like that. It feels like there's less to do at Epic Universe than at Animal Kingdom now, where there feels like there's very little to do if you're not going to be going on the nature walks to look at the animals. That's just my read on it. But maybe if I was a huge Monsters fan or gave a fuck about Halloween Horror Nights and like I don't like spooky stuff. It doesn't do anything for me. Like generically spooky stuff or historically significant spooky stuff. Like I don't give a fuck. I don't care about dragons, How to Train Your Dragon. I don't care about Fantastic Beasts. I don't care about like generic coaster in something called Celestial Gardens or whatever the hell. I like Nintendo Land, but like, to be honest, I guess I'll close on this note. Like, been to the Nintendo Land in Osaka years after it launched. Everything is clearly spit polished every night. They've got turtle wax on every single turtle shell. Every coin is glimmering. Like, both times I went to, this new Universal Park in Orlando, there's construction dust still all over the place on the props throughout Nintendo Land. There's not a lot of shine. There's dirt getting tracked in all over the place. And the Princess Peach's castle just looks like a fucking mess. Like, the floors are dirty. The Toad's Cafe, his restaurant in Japan, was phenomenal, and the food was super hyper designed and beautiful and like operationally incredible. And it was like fucking clusterfuck. And granted, it's like a training period and stuff, but like also the food isn't designed nearly as interestingly. It's just like, this is just a boring burger with like a pin in it. Whereas like, it's like a custom brioche bun that's like red with like a edible medallion, and they make Princess Peach's full size cake in Japan, right? Like, the Nintendo Land looks identical, and the rides are indeed identical in terms of ride system technology. But like, it already looks like it's fucking falling apart. Like the coins, like if you remember, the coins kind of like flicker in the original Mario Brothers. Well, the way that they accomplish that trick is that they rotate, and they've got special lights to kind of provide specular highlighting on them. Lights are broken in half these places. The Koopas aren't installed right. Like things are bouncing around and looking wrong. The physics are off. Like, multiple places, like one of the coins wouldn't be spinning. And granted, these are both preview days, but the fact that like it's also just dirty everywhere, and like parts that like, these are not even parts where like theme park guests can reach. These are areas where like operationally, like somebody in ops at night when they're cleaning the park could get up to that area and just, dust the bomb in the Mario Kart queue. And if so, you've been to the Osaka park and you've been to this park, you're like, you might understand why I feel like Universal Studios is not a theme park in Orlando. It is a very nice carnival. Like, I walked away from that experience thinking I probably never want to go back here again, to be frank. I'll do anything once. I want to go do the Ministry ride. But if I want to go to Super Nintendo Land, I'm going to go to the one in Osaka, because guess what? Osaka's 45 minutes away from Kyoto. You know what else is in Kyoto? Nintendo's headquarters. Like, Nintendo has a vested interest. Like, their executives, they go there on the weekend. If something's not right, they make it right. They make fucking sure it's right. Will they ever come back to Florida again after the first inspection? I fucking doubt it. Like, maybe on the next expansion or something, if there's something that there's going to be built here that's not built over there. But like, it's just really, really disappointing to see how much less rigor is put into the theming is one thing. Cohesion of design is one thing. But in order to sell that you're in a Nintendo game, kind of clean doesn't cut it. Because we're talking about like pixel perfection, right? In Osaka, that thing looks pixel perfect. You feel like you're in an isometric video game. You feel like you're in Super Mario RPG. The angles and everything, like everywhere you go, the sightlines are taller. It's remarkable. And I have to go back now just to kind of like experience to see if it's nostalgia goggles or something from like the haze of the post-COVID period or whatever. Like, I almost couldn't believe it. And I didn't even say anything. I kept it all to myself. And it was Becky who was like volunteering, like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I was like, watching her get saucy about something is it brings a special joy to my heart, because she's the joyful and happy one who doesn't tend to complain very often. But she had some good points. So I don't know who listens to this shit, but I honestly, if you were going to Epic Universe for the Nintendo Land, I would seriously cancel the trip, and I would get a flight to Japan, and I would just go to the Osaka one, because you can get Express Pass and ride everything with skipping the lines in the Osaka park, and a park ticket. You can get that for less than the price of a park ticket in Orlando, given how cheap the yen is. Plus, you get to go to Japan. So, hate to end on a negative note. I hate to be negative, but I really, really hope that those were just some aberrations and some pre-official open Flutter, but like in my experience, at least here in Orlando, like typically the first day that something's operating is its best day. And everything after that is a war of attrition as paint starts to chip and operational issues start to mount up, and then maintenance gets deferred until the next big refurb. And if that's the case, then I think that Nintendo Land will look really, really just sad and depressing in a couple of years. And that's the show. All right. I'll figure out how to end these someday. Bye.